Welcome to the Sherdog Radio Network preview for UFC 314, which goes down this Saturday, April 12th at Kaseya Center in Miami, Florida. I'm your host, Ben Duffy of Sherdog.com. With me, as usual, is Keith Schillen, the executive producer of the Sherdog Radio Network. Keith, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good, man. How you doing?
I'm doing really well. As of when we're talking right now, it's just a day after we punched out the UFC Vegas 105 recap. I figured the less said about that, the better, because we have what, on paper, to me at least, promises to be one of the more exciting pay-per-views of the year. I'll jump right out and say there's 13 fights on this card. The first couple are, none of the fights on this card are awful. Like, the first couple are kind of the lower level fights that, the UFC's got to knock them out. They got 600 fighters. They're all owed 3 fights a year. Sure. But even the first couple fights, they're not terrible. And then from there on up, the question I often remember to ask you on these, who's closest to a title shot with a win? There are 5 or 6 people on this card that are at least in the conversation somewhere. Like, they're for the top half of this card, there are no irrelevant fights.
I think Pitbull is.
I think it is entirely possible that you're right.
Jandiroba. Jandiroba sure already got a title shot.
But see, this is what I'm talking about. Like, Jandiroba's in the conversation. Except for the head-to-head result with Zhang, it's not like Xiaonan Yan is out of the conversation. If Sean Silva dusts Bryce Mitchell and says some outrageous stuff on the mic, he's jumping some people on that speed dial.
Patty would be only maybe one win away.
Yeah.
If he wins.
And then we haven't even talked about the main event, which is a title fight.
Sure.
This
card's awesome. I love this card. First of all, you're in Miami, beautiful beaches, beautiful women, beautiful nightlife, one of the best cities in America. First of all, are we going to break the news that I don't know if we told our boss Mike Freire yet, but we're doing a live show in Miami, and he's covering all the costs for that with the live recap show.
Yes. Yep.
Right on the beach.
I fully support this in a way that I wouldn't if this was like UFC Billings, Montana, or something like that.
Yeah. You look at the card. First of all, Volkanovski versus Lopez. That's such a great fight. You have 2 guys that are so good. I like how I don't know what the betting line is, but I'm assuming it's probably pretty close. It's 2 guys that I can see the fight really going either way. I think they're both really special fighters. You have big personalities, which is something I kind of always looking to check a box. I always think about the build up, the media day, the press conference. You got obviously Patty Pimblett, Michael Chandler, Bryce Mitchell, and John Silva. You go further down, you go like Yair and Pitbull, and even like matchups that make sense, like Jim Miller versus Chase Hooper. Like guys been in the UFC forever versus the young, rising kind of guy. The card's deep. It's got personalities. It's got things that matter for the rankings. I'm giving this an A. I think it's an A. I'm not going A plus. And again, A plus is really tough to get. But if you gave me Neal versus Prates on this that was scheduled, this might be an A plus. Now again, it's the different ranking system. Like I put this, it's a pay-per-view. I have this on tier 2. This is not this is not supposed to be a special one, like the pillar ones, the 3 or 4 a year that are really special. Those are the top one, have the higher standard.
Right.
But if you put John Jones versus Tom Aspinall on top of this card, this might be the greatest card ever. Now I'm doing some hyperbole there, but you get my point. It's an A plus.
This is as good as a UFC card gets without more than one title fight on it.
Yes, that's a really good way to say it.
And like the fight, the International Fight Week card, the November Madison Square Garden card, both of which are almost certain to have, at least 2 title fights and like one obvious title eliminator on it. Those are the only ones that might outshine this one on paper by the end of the year. And obviously that's not everything. Sometimes cards look amazing on paper and just kind of fall flat in the arena. I find it hard to picture that with this one. There's sometimes when we're just watching some average fight night and all of a sudden it's like, man, have we really had 7 decisions in a row? This card feels, 10 hours long. It's hard for me to picture that here.
There's a lot of action guys on this card. And I mean, this feels like a really big event. So let me tell you what I was doing today. So I was doing yard work today and I was listening to an MMA podcast. So I really don't do that often. But it wasn't a preview show. It was like one of these, I don't want to say the person's name, but they like do interviews with people and stuff. And he's much bigger than like more views than we get. And everything. He's a big name in the industry. Not Ariel Helwani before people think I'm bashing Ariel. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, dude, this guy's so popular. He's not that good. Anyways, I'm sitting there and I'm like,
Luke Thomas is a big dude. He's going to come kick your ass.
Yeah, no, I actually like. I know.
Yeah, I like Luke too, but Luke's a huge dude.
Yeah. So I'm sitting there and I'm like, dude, it's time for us to get out of we got to get out of the prelims. Like, we're the prelims, and I'm like, you know what? We're good at what we do. We go deeper than anybody else. We're funnier than anybody else. Like, this is what I want to do. It's time for us to start rising up. People keep saying like, "Oh, you guys should be so much more popular." Well, then help us get more popular. I'm going to start setting goals. Is that all right?
Absolutely.
I think 3,500 views for this is minimum. We need 3,500 views. I think that's very easy for us to get.
I think we do better. Yeah, I think we do at least that well, especially considering this one's going to go up a couple hours early because we're recording a couple hours earlier than usual.
All right, then we'll go. Yeah. Then we'll go 3,800 views. Automatically 3,800. But this is what I want. I want 150 likes, 150 comments. This is just the beginning. We're gonna keep. Now, obviously, I know Apex cards headlined by Josh Emmett won't be as popular, but help us out. We want to make the show bigger. I'm not gonna go too much of a rant, but next time I'll rant a little bit more. But let's help us out. Let's hit those goals.
First up on the UFC 314 prelims is a women's bantamweight matchup between Nora Cornolle and Hailey Cowan. Cornolle, the 35-year-old French woman, is 8-2 overall. She's 2-1 in the UFC. She is coming off her first loss in the octagon. She dropped a split decision to Jacqueline Cavalcanti. Cavalcanti, ironically, accounted for Cornolle's very first professional loss in her professional debut. So her record right now consists of 8 straight wins sandwiched between a pair of losses to Jackie Cavalcanti. She's going to look to get back into the win column here against Cowan. Cowan, 33-year-old Texan, 7-3 overall, 0-1 since joining the UFC out of season 6 of Dana White's Contender Series. She fought on the Contender Series all the way back in 2022. She made her debut almost exactly 2 years ago, dropping a unanimous decision to Jamie Lynn Horth. She has been on the shelf ever since then. She's actually had at least one fight scheduled, one that she had to fall out during fight week because she had like ovarian cysts, which, as I'm made to understand, are extremely painful. I can't comment one way or the other. I drop out of all of my responsibilities if I came down with an ovarian cyst as well. But 2 years later, she is back. She's looking to get back into the win column here as well. She's not favored to do so, as Cornolle is a mild to moderate -165 favorite. Cowan +140 coming back. It's been 2 years since we talked about Hailey Cowan. Or no, actually, we previewed her fight where she withdrew during fight week. But at any rate, it's been 2 years since we actually covered a Hailey Cowan fight, and I'm pretty sure I said this last time as well. I had higher hopes and higher expectations for her when back in 2019 or whenever it was, I drove out to Waco and watched her fight at LFA in her 3rd or 4th professional fight.
That's not why you drove out to Waco.
Nope. Plenty of good reasons to drive out.
You're going to your home church, the Branch Davidians.
Exactly, yeah, but still shut down for some fire repairs. Like Cowan, I wasn't predicting the same heights for her, but I saw just a lot of kind of the Holly Holm type upside in her. Just this was an obviously very athletic woman who she was still raw skills wise, but seemed to have plenty of room to continue improving. And I figured she'd be in the UFC sooner than later, which she sort of was. But since then, just hasn't really delivered. And part of it has been a variety of health issues that have kept her from being busy as I'm sure she would like. And part of it is just that she hasn't really developed. And she meets Cornolle here. Cornolle being, a veteran kind of European kickboxer / regional French fighter who, unlike Cowan, Cornolle's fought up at 145 pounds. Cowan finally bowed to biology and moved up from 125. But this to me plays out very much as kind of a superior athlete against a more skilled fighter. Like Cowan, unless she's made enormous strides in her skills in the 2 years she's been on the shelf, is still sort of a one-dimensional move forward bully of a fighter. Like her striking is raw. Like her kicks and punches have power, but doesn't throw in combination as well as she should. Doesn't have great footwork. Isn't great defensively. She's an effective offensive wrestler just because she usually is strong, powerful, able to get in on other women, clinch, and just either hoist and trip them or find other ways to get into the ground. And once she gets them there, her physical strength comes into play. She has decent ground and pound, pretty good instincts on the ground. She's shown like decent back takes, good work from guard, just kind of softening women up and getting them, to give up their back or just to get beat up and lose rounds. Her routes to victory over Cornolle seem pretty straightforward to me. Like if she can get at Cornolle, not get pot shotted from distance, and if she can, either back Cornolle up to the cage or just get her hands on her in space and basically get her to the ground before Cornolle can start doing Muay Thai style knees and bad stuff to her on the inside, I think she can win this fight, even as a slight underdog. Cornolle's better. I mean, she's looked better so far than I thought she would. Her fight with Cavalcanti was close, and I'm mildly high on Cavalcanti as a prospect. Her win over Jocelyn Edwards looks decent in hindsight. Like, Edwards is an improving fighter. This is a tough one to pick. The odds are rightfully close, but right out the gate, give me Cowan in a mild upset here. I think she's better at 135 than she is at 125. I am hoping, knock on wood, like she's healthy. And if she's healthy and is on a full camp and is physically on point for this, I do think she has greater upside than Cornolle. I do think I think she's too aggressive to just sit on the outside and kind of get pelted with like low kicks and jabs at range. I think she will force the issue. And like I say, if she does and she's in decent physical condition competitively, I think she wins a decision here.
Yeah, it's funny. I think Hailey Cowan, like, she's 33 years old, and it's so funny. Like, I don't think of her that old. How is she 3 years older than Michal Oleksiejczuk? Oh, yeah, there you go. Yeah. If you ask me, Hailey Cowan, like, what does she do for fun? I'd say, making TikTok videos or, watching Housewives of something show or something, that the young generation does. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, if you gave me a range to guess how old she was, I would have said 26 or 29. 33, she's so much older than I thought. Not that she's like a dinosaur or anything, but the thing that I like about her, she's a good athlete. She's a southpaw. She has nice footwork. She moves really well. She uses her footwork to kind of keep her distance. I like her volume on her feet. She got some quick hands. I like her check right hook. Huge kicking game, and that's the best part of her game. Kicks to all areas of the body. She got this quick high kick. She loves the Holly Holm side kick. She doesn't check leg kicks. She does mix in punches and kicks together in combination, which I like. She's very physically strong. She'll close the distance, use her size in the clinch. I'll go back to like the Contender Series. I know it was a long time ago now, but when she was in the Contender Series, she cut her opponent with a nice elbow inside in the clinch, nice knees inside. She isn't much of an offensive wrestler, but if it ends up in a scramble, she actually does pretty well when she's on top to land some ground and pound. She's a bad defensive wrestler though, and she needs to improve her get up game. She also she's given up her back to get up, and she needs to improve her submission defense. I mean, 2 out of the 3 losses have come by way of submission. Now, Nora Cornolle, I agree that she has looked better of the two so far in the UFC, but she's a much poorer athlete of the two. On the feet, she's a kickboxer. I'd say she's like a power puncher. She has some nice power. She has a good high kick. She's got a lot of defensive issues, keeps her chin really high in the air. She can close the distance and strike really well and use her strength inside the clinch. Good knees and size. She looks to wrestle a lot. I don't know if she's great at it though. But I think it helps her win rounds, and it could help her win rounds in this fight if she gets some good timing on her takedowns. She's a bad defensive wrestler though. Jocelyn Edwards, who isn't really known for her wrestling, did take her down. But in fairness, she stopped some takedowns from Melissa Mullins. If she gets the fight down, her ground and pound is solid. So this is a pretty even fight because I think they both fight fairly similar on the feet. I'd say Cowan's the bigger and a better athlete, while Cornolle has probably more avenues for victory. But we're going to start off with a consensus upset pick. I'm going to say Cowan's a little too fast for Cornolle. I think she gets the better of the striking exchanges. She does enough to keep it away from the ground. Give me Cowan by decision.
All right. We have a unanimous upset pick right out of the gate. We will see how that one turns out for us. Middleweights take the cage next at UFC 314 as Tresean Gore squares off against Marco Tulio. Gore, the 30-year-old South Carolinian training out of Georgia, is 5-2 overall. He's 2-2 since joining the UFC as a middleweight finalist of season 29 of The Ultimate Fighter. He dropped his first two fights in the UFC in the tough finale against Brian Battle and then against Cody Brundage before putting together back-to-back wins over Josh Fremd and Antonio Tricoli. He will look to make it 3 in a row here against Tulio. Tulio, also 30 years old, fighting out of Brazil and Chuta Boxa Diego Lima. He's 13-1 overall. He's 1-0 since joining the UFC as a 2-time veteran of Dana White's Contender Series, having won on Season 7 as well as Season 8. He was signed earlier this year. He made his debut back in January at UFC Fight Night Dern versus Ribas 2, where he knocked out Igor Poteria in the first round. He is on a 9-fight win streak overall, which he will look to extend to 10, and he is heavily favored to do so, as Silva is a comfortable minus 310, Gore plus 250 coming back.
Wow.
I'm going to flip this one to you, but Tresean Gore, he's another one where he has just 7 professional fights. He's already 30 years old. It's getting out of the range where it's comfortable to call someone a prospect. Tell me what kind of upside you still see in either of these 30-year-olds.
Yeah, Tulio's a really good addition to the UFC. I know since he came in, he's looked really good. Gore, on the other hand, he's had flashes, but he's so inactive that you kind of forget about him for a while. I liked him on the Ultimate Fighter show. Like when he was fighting Brian Battle for the championship, I thought he was going to win. And it didn't happen. And Brian Battle has gone on to be a really good fighter himself. But the thing that stands out for me, Gore's really big. He's a big guy for the weight class. He's a good athlete. He moves well. I'd say he's a solid striker, pretty well rounded. He can fight out of both stances. Surprisingly more technical of a striker than you'd think for someone who's as inexperienced as he is. He's accurate. He works behind a good jab. He follows with good power punches. And I'd say he has plus power. Like I wouldn't categorize him as a power puncher, but I like his kicking game. He goes hard kicks to the body. He'll go through good calf kicks, powerful calf kicks. He will sometimes throw him naked and can get cracked. He isn't a bad wrestler. It definitely wouldn't categorize him as like this standout wrestler, but if he can sneak in a takedown, he's a really good grappler. He has some slick back takes on Tough. Now you say, "Oh, Keith, you're going back to Tough. That's a long time ago." Well, he hasn't really fought that much since then. So in the scheme of his like schedule, it's not that far back. He's got he landed 2 back-to-back standing guillotine wins, which is like not just getting guillotine, but getting standing guillotines really weird. You have to worry about his chin though. I mean, he took a really bad loss against Cody Brundage where he got knocked out. Tulio, very aggressive striker. He's like a pressure counter striker. He leads with his rear like his right hand a lot, which we don't see often. But it's a little wrinkle in his game that is something to watch out for. He loves to work the body. He can get drawn into a brawl, and that's because he has some huge power. I mean, I think he's got 9 TKOs already in his career. He can overextend himself and overthrow, which would leave him open to be countered. He has a solid kicking game himself. He likes teep kicks up the middle. He'll throw out some spinning attacks. He had this incredible spinning wheel, KO in the past. A lot of defensive issues, though. He's a bit of a stationary target, standing right in front of his opponent, which is funny because he's pretty athletic. You think he'd move a little bit more. He will wrestle, but I don't think he's that good at it. And he's a weak defensive wrestler. I think this is a solid matchup. I'm very surprised by the line, just because I think obviously that has a lot more to do with Gore's inactivity than his actual skill set. Gore's well-rounded, so I think he has that advantage. I think he's the more well-rounded fighter, but truly I think is the advantage in the athleticism and definitely the advantage in the power. I've gone back and forth with this one. I think the line's, like I said, I think this line's way off. I guess I'm going huge upset. I'm going to go Gore. I think Gore has more avenues for victory. I think he uses his movement to kind of avoid the big shots from Tulio. I think he jabs from distance. I think he sneaks in a takedown or two to win some really close rounds. Give me Gore by split decision.
I love the pick there. I was surprised by the line as well. I certainly see the upset potential for Gore. Well, for one, he's proven himself very capable of snatching a standing guillotine and actually putting his opponent in trouble with it. And he's done it twice in a row now. And while I don't think Friend or Tricoli are anywhere near Marco Tulio's level as an overall fighter, it's worth noting that both those guys are a lot taller than Tresean Gore. Like, he started from a basic physical geometric disadvantage in slapping a guillotine on those guys, and it did not stop him in the least. I could see him winning that way. I could see him winning the way you laid out there. Like, they're going to talk about him like he's Uriah Hall. He's not, but he is a dangerous striker who's surprisingly well-rounded. While I don't think Tulio should be a greater than 3-1 favorite, I'm leaning towards him here as the far more experienced fighter overall, the far more active fighter over the last 18 to 24 months, and as one who's going to come forward, be aggressive, and probably do his best to put Gore on his heels and keep Gore from getting his own striking really going. For those reasons, I lean towards Tulio. I could see him picking up a decision that way. I could also see him catching Gore with some of that nasty power, and that's kind of where I'm headed. I'm thinking Tulio catches Gore sometime mid to late second round of what has been a very exciting back and forth fight so far, where both guys have had their moments of success. But if Cody Brundage was able to stun Gore badly with a punch and then pour it on and finish, Marco Tulio can absolutely do that. And that's what I'm leaning towards here. So give me Tulio by second round TKO.
Yeah, but you know what? If Gore, because I picked Gore to win, and you said that Gore could win with a standing guillotine. If Gore gets a third win in a row by standing guillotine, me and Ben are doing a shot on the recap show together. Just that doesn't win. He's got to hit a standing guillotine.
Men's flyweights are up next on the UFC 314 undercard as Mudaerji faces off against Mitch Raposo. Mudaerji, the 29-year-old from Tibet, is 16-7 overall. He is 3-4 since joining the UFC as a former standout in China's Wuling Feng promotion. He is on a 3-fight losing streak, having dropped consecutive fights to Matt Schnell, Tim Elliott, and Charles Johnson in his last 3 cage appearances, which even worse news for him have come at a rate of 1 per year in each of the last 3 calendar years. So he is that deadly combination of unsuccessful and inactive. He will try to snap both of those at the expense of Mr. Raposo. 26-year-old from Fall River, 9-2 overall. He is 0-1 since joining the UFC as a veteran of Dana White's Contender Series and The Ultimate Fighter. He made his debut last June at UFC 302, dropping a split decision to Andre Lima. So he is the answer to a trivia question that nobody really wants to be, as he has managed to lose once each in the UFC, on The Ultimate Fighter, and on Dana White's Contender Series. I'm sure he would love to be known for something other than that. And while he is not favored,
looking for a fight.
yeah, I'm sure he would rather not be back in CES, like, hoping that Matt Serra and Dean Thomas show up to watch him fight. He is not favored, but the line isn't that wide, as Mudaerji is around minus 190, Raposo plus 160. Keith, I'm going to flip this to you. I feel like I say this too often about fighters, and to the point that maybe it's a cop-out, but in a vacuum, Mitch Raposo doesn't look like a bad fighter. So why does he have results like a bad fighter? And who gets it done here? I kind of alluded to it during the intro. This is the one fight on the entire card that I'm like, okay, probably neither of these guys are really, really UFC material. But tell me if I'm wrong, and tell me who goes a step towards proving me wrong on Saturday.
So, Ben, I got to say, you're so professional, and your introductions are the best in the business. You got all your information, except for one thing. He's not from Fall River. He's from Florida.
Oh, one of the Portuguese community?
Yes.
Okay.
Florida. And I can say that because I grew up in, I didn't grow up in Florida. I lived in Fall River right before me and my wife got married. We went from that little, I moved out of my roommates in Fall River, went across the longest bridge in the world, which is the Braga Bridge, which goes from Portugal to America. and then we moved to East Providence, where I grew up. Our first house living together was in East Providence, and that's the other Portuguese neighborhood, Central East Providence. And then eventually I moved to where I live now. And the other thing you said is if Mitch Raposo loses, he could go back to CES. That won't happen because he's too old. Because the last CES card had two kids, no lie, my son's age, wrestling, having a grappling match. If you buy tickets to see kids, one of the kids, my son, has actually wrestled and a couple of times, beat him pretty good. But I know both of the dads, and they're both fantastic people. So I don't want to shit on that too much, but CES used to be on Access TV, every couple of Friday nights, and be springboarded into, people into the UFC, be in Twin River Casino, great like that, and now it's at the freaking this old theater in Cranston, and it's like catching buckets of water in the hallway, and it's like it was right after like the Four Seasons tribute band, and tomorrow night it's going to be someone dressed as Prince singing the hits. God, at CES, I thought it was already bad, but it's gotten really bad. But the sad thing is, like, what's his name? Rebello. I can't think of his first name. Greg Rebello. Greg Rebello's son is one of the guys competing. He might be the most talented person in the organization, and he's like 10. He's actually a very good wrestler, and Kitty Winnigan is a very good wrestler too. So, man,
if I lived in Southern New England, I would have so much fun being plugged into the local scene up there. Like, I remember a couple summers ago when I took the Association of Boxing Commission's MMA reffing and judging course, and Kevin McDonald was our teacher. He, of course, is a Boston guy, and in order to give us exposure on, this is what it's like to judge a live fight, he threw on some low-level New England MMA, because he's like, the UFC spoils you. You have replay. You have 3 cameras. He's like, here's one hard camera representing you sitting on a stool. Now score this and give me your round score 3 seconds after the horn.
Sure. Yeah, right away.
And he used Combat Zone. And
oh God.
After the round, I'm like, I know this is off topic, but Kevin, is that a Chinese restaurant? And he's like, yes, sir, that is a Chinese restaurant.
Nice,
It was a Chinese restaurant where they just literally like pushed tables and like stacked chairs on top of them, like they were getting ready to mop the floors, but then they like built a cage in the middle of it.
Yeah.
I'm like, I can't imagine how it must smell in there. Just foot funk and like chicken chow mein, like just walking through here. Anyway.
I will say I see Greg Rebello almost at every single weekend at wrestling meets here, and he's such a good dude. You couldn't find a better dude in MMA than Greg Rebello. And like I said, my son has never wrestled with his son because his son's a lot bigger. The kid that my son wrestled, like,
Greg Rebello's kid is larger than yours?
Yeah, go figure. Go figure. But my kid wrestled me years ago, and that kid had like this great growth spurt, and he actually became a much better wrestler now. He's a pretty tough kid. So I don't know who won that match, but it was jiu-jitsu style. So who knows? Anyways, that's more exciting than this fight. No, actually, I actually like this fight. I think you said that Mitch is better than his record. I think Mudaerji is better than his record too. I think both guys are. Mudaerji.
Can I throw one thing out there real quick?
Sure.
I should have mentioned this like during the intro, but Mudaerji's 3 losses, like Matt Schnell, Tim Elliott, Charles Johnson, they're all at least top 15-ish quality guys when they're on.
But then when he lost to Schnell, it was better than like Schnell now.
Yeah, like losing to Schnell in 2022, like Schnell at the time was like a top 10 fighter who just kept getting injured.
Sure.
But having said that, Mudaerji's 3 UFC wins are over like 3 of the worst twos the division has to offer.
Yeah.
Like in Rhode Island MMA, Mount Rushmore occupant Andrei Sukumtov, and then like also Malcolm Gordon and Zaruka Dashev. Malcolm Gordon from Canada.
There you go. that was very off topic before we started taping. Mudaerji, I mean, I'll start with him because he's been in the UFC. He's been in the UFC a long time now. He's a southpaw. He's a pretty good athlete. I think he moves well. I think he's a solid striker. He has like Taekwondo style to him. He likes to get in and get out. He also likes to counter strike. He's got fast hands, nice snap on his shots. He works behind a good jab. His straight left is really good. I mean, going back to the Schnell fight, he had a lot of success against Schnell. He couldn't miss with that left hand. He's good at beating his opponents to the point of attack. He has nice power. You mentioned Malcolm Gordon. I mean, he destroyed Malcolm Gordon, knocked him out bad. He's got a big kicking game, good kicks to all areas of the body. He loves that like Stephen Thompson like hook kick. He can close the distance and go to work inside. He landed a really powerful elbow against Schnell in the clinch. He lands those shots because he frames really well, and he's big for the weight class. He's not a great wrestler, but he can like hit a takedown or two, sneak one in. He's got solid takedown defense. We saw it against Tim Elliott. He did pretty good. If he's on top, he's got good ground and pound. You do have to worry about his submission defense, though. He's been sub 5 times, including to Schnell and Tim Elliott. His offensive just is bad. Like he went against Charles Johnson, almost had him in triangle shake, almost had him in Darce choke, and we know how good Charles Johnson is. We want to miss Raposo. Raposo, one of the New England guys I kind of like. He's a good athlete. He uses a lot of movement. Sometimes a little bit too much movement. We saw that in his last fight. He can flow out of both stances, constantly moving and changing angles, very like boxing style, where he's like L-stepping, and he uses a lot of feints to set up his shots. Sometimes he does too much fading and not enough like actually letting his hands go. He against a good fighter in Andre Lima, and he had too low of an output in that fight. When he lets his hands go, he's got quick hands. He's got really nice, clean, tight boxing. He's accurate. He works behind a good jab. He follows with combinations. He has good power. He's still really young. I'd say he has decent power. He's not a big KO guy, but he'll buckle his foe. And again, he really kind of just now entering his power years. He loves to slip and then rip with a counter strike. He's good at slipping and then countering with specifically with like a power shot and an overhand right. Going to the body is a big part of his game. He can sneak in a takedown, though he's not a very credentialed wrestler. And I think he wrestled at like Durfee High School, but nothing like, I don't think he was like New England champion or anything like that. He also abandoned his wrestling against Andre Lima. He didn't look for it at all in a fight that he probably should have. He's got some solid takedown defense. He has 3 submission wins, and he's got good cardio. I think this is a sneaky fight. I think this is actually a pretty awesome fight. That's kind of what happens when you get flyweights. I'm always down with a flyweight fight, and I think both these guys are solid flyweight fighters. Let's say this: I'm much higher on these guys than you are. Okay. I think both of their records would suggest low-level UFC talent, but I think they're all right. I think Raposo is one of the good guys from New England. I think that said, I'm still leaning towards Mudaerji. I flip-flopped. And I really feel like this is the type of fighter that Raposo can beat. But when I'm on the fence, I'm always going to go against New England. Give me Mudaerji by split decision.
I am definitely like a little harsher on both these guys than you are, it sounds like. Having said that, of the two of them,
Raposo is clearly the one that's more of a question mark. You know, he's younger. He has much less experience at the top level. You know, Mudaerji already has 7 or 8 UFC fights. You mentioned that Raposo is capable of wrestling. I think it would be in his best interest to do so here, because if you ask me, what is Mudaerji not good at? Well, the most obvious thing he's not good at is recognizing when he's about to go to sleep, since he has like 3 straight technical submission losses, or like 3 out of his last 4, something like that, where he's been choked all the way to sleep, right, rather than tapping. But if Raposo will try his offensive wrestling, I think it'll help his striking, and I think it'll also help create situations where, I mean, even if he doesn't become the 4th guy in the last 4 years to, put Mudaerji down for a nap, can at least be a route for him to win rounds and have the guy in peril. Raposo has a nice quick back take that can be done to Mudaerji. We've seen it happen to him numerous times, whereas Mudaerji is, maybe a little overzealous on the ground, not as cognizant of his positioning as he should be. It's tempting for me to take the upset here, but I'm with you. I'm leaning towards Mudaerji to come out ahead on the scorecards in what it will be a fun back and forth fight if it plays out like I envision it playing out. There's definitely a chance that either guy could tap out the other the more time it spends on the ground. But this may be one of those fights where they're just content to engage in kind of a medium output, medium power kickboxing match for 15 minutes. I have the feeling we get something closer to that, and that Mudaerji comes out on top. We head back to the middleweight division as Sedriques Dumas looks to defend home turf against Michal Oleksiejczuk. Dumas, the 29-year-old Floridian, maybe the only native Floridian on the whole card. At any rate, 10-2 overall, 3-2 since joining the UFC out of season 6 of Dana White's Contender Series. He's coming in off a win. He fought twice last year, getting knocked out by Nursultan Ruziboyev back in March, and then coming back in August and taking a unanimous decision over Denis Tululin. He will look to stay in the win column here against the veteran Oleksiejczuk. 30-year-old from Poland is 19-9 with 1 no contest overall. He's 7-7 with 1 no contest in the UFC. He is 3-4 at middleweight after starting his UFC run as a visibly undersized 205-pounder. Despite dropping to what is probably a better weight class for him, he is coming in on a 3-fight losing streak, comprising all 3 cage appearances of 2024. He got choked out by Michal Pereira back in March at UFC 299, came back in June at UFC 302, and got his arm kind of put on backwards by Kevin Holland, and then came back in August at UFC on ABC Sandhagen versus Nurmagomedov, and fought to a unanimous decision loss against Shara Bullet. So he is looking to snap the only the 2nd losing streak of his entire career, the longest losing streak of his entire career. That's the bad news for him. The good news is that he is actually favored to get it done, as Oleksiejczuk, despite the skid, is minus 200, Dumas plus 170 coming back. All right, I mean, anybody who's watched our show for any amount of time probably has heard us weigh in on Sedriques Dumas. Keith and I are both on record as saying a guy with these kind of violence problems in his private life probably shouldn't be in the violence business professionally. If you want to know more about it, hit us in the comments, or just look up Keith's article on Sherdog ahead of Dumas's UFC debut. At any rate, the UFC has him on roster. They have to give him fights. If you have to give him fights, I guess you put him on a card in his native state where at least it'll be 50-50 boos and cheers instead of just all boos, and you put him against a fellow striker on a 3-fight losing streak. They checked all the boxes there, and Michal Oleksiejczuk is still a minus 200 favorite. And I get why. Oleksiejczuk is pretty good. Even at 205, despite just being visibly way smaller than everybody he fought, he had pretty fast hands and pretty good power. Not flatten you power, but just power that comes from good, crisp boxing technique, not over swinging, just having decent mechanics. That's carried over to 185. in hindsight, losing 3 straight fights to Michel Pereira, Shara Bullet, and Kevin Holland on a good night isn't the end of the world. And I do like this matchup for Oleksiejczuk stylistically. Dumas, fair play to him. For a guy as inexperienced as him, he already has a nice kicking game. He clearly has a good understanding of what his gifts and advantages are physically. Like, he is a fast twitch dude who's tall and lanky, has long legs, long arms, and he does try to fight an outfight when he can. Like, left to his own devices, I think in his mind, his perfect fight would be against a woman 60 pounds smaller than him. But if he can't get that, would be an out kickboxing match where he is just using superior footwork to keep a slower guy on the outside until he can line him up for a head kick and get a highlight reel victory. Like, in my mind, that's probably Sedriques Dumas's ideal fight. But if that doesn't work out for him, while he is still a terrible defensive wrestler, he's proven himself to be a willing and surprisingly effective offensive wrestler. I think if he beats Oleksiejczuk, that's the way he does it. Because if he tries to fight a regular Sedriques Dumas fight against Oleksiejczuk, he's going to be against a guy that's shorter than him and is giving up reach, but has good footwork, throws in combination, and reliably comes forward. Like, Oleksiejczuk is kind of built to make kickers uncomfortable. Like, if Dumas is smart, like Cage smart, he starts looking for reactive takedowns on Oleksiejczuk. At least threatens with him to give Oleksiejczuk something to think about, and maybe buys himself more time and more opportunity at his preferred striking range. I can see him doing that. I mean, I can see him lancing Oleksiejczuk with some huge kicks, or I can see him, taking him down, slapping on a guillotine. He has a decent guillotine, but I'm not picking it. I don't know if Oleksiejczuk should be a full 2-1 favorite, but I do like this matchup for him stylistically. Give me Oleksiejczuk to come forward, probably win all 3 rounds. And I don't think it's going to be like a beatdown of the year type mauling, but it's going to be one where Dumas is kind of busted up by the end, and more than anything else, probably looking and feeling pretty frustrated. I think Oleksiejczuk is built to blunt a lot of the things that Dumas does well offensively. And I think the huge difference in competition, experience, high-level competition will kind of tell here. Give me Oleksiejczuk to win a pretty straightforward decision.
Yeah, this is a treat fight, especially if it stays on the feet. Oleksiejczuk, he's a southpaw. He fights with nonstop pressure, though, on the feet. Great volume. He's really good at forcing his opponents onto their back foot and then not letting them escape when he kind of gets them trapped. He bursts forward with a bunch of big combinations, as you mentioned. He wings his overhand left, which he uses to kind of close the distance to get into the pocket where he's at his best. But he also likes the overhand right too. So it's kind of watch out for the big blows from both directions. I think his best work is when he goes to the body. And he has for a smaller guy in the weight class, he has some good power. I mean, he even in bad showings, like when he against Kevin Holland, he still dropped Kevin Holland with a shot. So take that for what it's worth. And Holland, it really doesn't have durability issues. Well, I like Oleksiejczuk's offense. His defense sucks. When it falls apart for him, it falls off like very fast. He's willing to eat a shot to land one of his own. He was destroyed to the body by Michel Pereira. I think he's an underrated offensive wrestler, and his wrestling has come like a really long way. I mean, that was one of like the worst things in his game. So he'll mix in a takedown or 2 here or there. He's still a very poor defensive wrestler. He struggles to get back to his feet if he's taken down. The biggest issue is really his submission defense. I mean, he lost to. I mean, his submission loss to Kevin Holland was so ugly. He just like put his arm right in the position to be armbarred. Dumas, I mean, we talked at length about how bad of a person he is. I don't like him that much better as a fighter. He's very big for the weight class. Like, he's probably a guy who could easily just move up and compete. Instead of cutting the weight that he looks like a guy who cuts a lot of weight. On the feet, he's a long and lengthy kickboxer. He is explosive. He closes the distance quickly with big, long shots. He does need to up his volume a little bit. He can kind of be a little gun shy. Big kicking game, hard calf kicks, hard kicks to the body. His defense needs improvement, though. He backs straight up on the center line. He's been cracked a lot. He doesn't respond to punches too well. I mean, he was cracked by Josh Fram. He was cracked by Nursultan Huzabayev. Both hurt him. You mentioned his wrestling. His wrestling, I think you're a little higher on his wrestling than I am. I think I agree with you when you said his offensive wrestling isn't bad. His defensive wrestling, and you mentioned this, but his defensive wrestling has been fairly inconsistent. It looked pretty good against Cody Brundage, who is one of the better wrestlers he's faced and possibly the best wrestler he's faced. But he was like even in a dominant when he was taken down in that fight. So that's concerning. He has a few submission records, but I've seen him rush submissions, lose position. He did get a guillotine on the Contender Series, so something to watch out for with those long arms. But cardio has been an issue in the past, though it has looked a little bit better. I totally agree with you that Dumas is best having a victory is a close distance, get the takedown, look for submissions against a guy who's really struggled on the ground. But I'm all over Oleksiejczuk here. I say he comes out very aggressive. I say he cracks Dumas over and over again. And I think eventually puts him out with a shot early in the fight. I'm going to say Oleksiejczuk wins by first round knockout.
Next up at UFC 314 is the first of 5 scheduled men's featherweight fights on the card as Darren Elkins squares off against Julian Erosa. Elkins, the 40-year-old Indiana native, is 29-11 overall. He's 19-10 in the UFC. He is on a 2-fight win streak, comprising his last 2 cage appearances over 2 years. He fought just once last year. It was in October, where he took a unanimous decision over Daniel Pineda. He'll look to make it 3 wins in a row here against Erosa. Erosa, 35-year-old Washington State native, 30-11 overall, 8-7 across 3 separate stints in the UFC. Third time was the charm for Juicy J, as he's barely over 500 in the UFC overall, but since returning this last time, he is 7-3 and really does appear to be just a completely different fighter. He is on a 2-fight win streak himself. That would include both of his octagon appearances of last year. He guillotined Ricardo Ramos back in March. Then in July at UFC on ESPN, Namajunas versus Cortez, he guillotined Christian Rodriguez. So he's looking to make it 3 in a row as well. He is heavily favored to get it done here as he is minus 400. Elkins plus 300 coming back. Keith, it's almost a shame this matchup has to happen because these are 2 of our guys. And
it's like our 2 sons fighting.
Yeah. Beyond being just 2 of kind of the Shillen and Duffy guys, past that similarity, they're pretty different. I mean, Elkins is just an ultimate grinder, overachiever, guy who's still out there winning fights at age 40 when, I mean, he was a minus athlete by the standards of the division when he was 26. And just another one of those tough as leather dudes still somehow getting it done out there. And Erosa's the opposite. Erosa, generally speaking, has been a equal opportunity distributor of first round highlight finishes to himself and his opponents. They meet in the middle. Something's got to give. And I always see the upset value in a Darren Elkins fight. Again, he's tougher than shoe leather. He doesn't really. He's one of the few guys that I think it actually may be true that he doesn't get his head into the game until he's bleeding. Like they say that about a few fighters, like he doesn't realize he's in a fight until he's gotten busted up a little bit. I think that's usually overstated. I think it may actually be true about Elkins. You look at his photo gallery on SureDog, he is covered in somebody's blood in like 90% of those photos. And he's a guy who is a grindy wrestler that just gets better as the fight goes along. Like he remains pretty damn durable even at age 40. He can be blitzed by fast, hard-hitting guys. That's always been the case. Plenty of people have gotten him out of there in the first round, but it's not a matter of durability. You don't see a bunch of people finishing him in the third after gradually wearing him down. If you're still punching Darren Elkins in the third round, you need to be worried because Elkins might be coming for you. Erosa certainly qualifies as a guy who could nuke Elkins in the first round. Like Julian Erosa, kind of like Terrence McKinney, comes out like a maniac and is equally capable of knocking you out or submitting you in the first 5 minutes of a fight. The difference in Erosa this last time around, it's not like he's suddenly become a defensive wizard or a super durable guy. I mean, his 3 losses since he's been back in the UFC have all been first round knockouts against him. But having said that, I think he does have a little bit more poise, and he doesn't look as surprised anymore when he walks out for a second round. Because of that, whatever window there was for Darren Elkins to pull an upset here, I think it has closed compared to what it would have been a couple of years ago, just by Elkins being that much older and Erosa coming into his like weird prime. Because of that, somebody here has got to lose. And yeah, I'm pretty sure it's Elkins. Despite Erosa being one of the more offensively diverse and potent guys in the entire division, ranked or not, I don't think he finishes Elkins. I think Elkins is still grinning at him through a mouthful of blood at the end of the first round. I think this thing makes it all 3 rounds, but I think Erosa wins all 3 rounds. Like by the time like blood and guts Elkins gets kicked into gear, I think he's going to be pretty beat up and maybe won't even be able to dig deep enough to win that 3rd round over Erosa. So give me Julian Erosa to hear a final horn for the first time in like 2.5 years, but to win all 3 rounds against Elkins here.
Dude, there's so many things I want to talk about. A lot of times when I start off like my turn, I'll write little notes of things you say or something stands out to me till I remember to go back to it. And my list got so long, I'm like, all right, just forget it. Julian Rosa, I understand why you're taking him, but like -400. Imagine the day that we would have said Julian Rosa is a -400 favorite in the UFC. Like that's crazy. Like,
yes.
Like that was never. He's usually the opposite. He's like the +400 guy, and that pulls the upset.
Yeah.
He talked about Darren Elkins like not getting started till it's bloody. Like I think about like the Frunza fight from yesterday where his lip is busted open, his eyes open. It's like Elkins like, yeah, that was my warm up. Like ready, we start fighting now. Like, you talk about, you said like even in his prime, Darren Elkins was never a good athlete. Like, do you think like I can just imagine Darren Elkins like playing like slow pitch men's softball? Like he strikes out. Like he's not hitting the ball. He's striking out. He'd be like the guy like you bring to the batting cages and you'd be like, all right, we put it on softball medium. Like it's gonna have a little bit of speed and you're like, all right, so swing early. And you're like worry about that, but he goes to grab the bat and he falls over. He trips over, like knocks over a bunch of bats.
He might go deep into the count at T-ball.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he'll whoop your ass though if you make fun of him.
I wouldn't say that while he was holding a bat. That's for damn sure.
I mean, the dude just turned 40 years old, but I'm pretty sure that dude was 40 years old in middle school. Like, like I said, he's a terrible athlete, but he might be the toughest dude that has ever fought in the UFC. I mean, there's no way this dude is not going to have CNT for the rest of his life. Like, he's a guy, yeah, he's entertaining, but he's also one of those ones where like you watch Gladiator and be like, how can these people like back in like the Roman Colosseums like cheer when someone gets a spear stabbed through him? Like, yeah, I enjoy Darren Elkins fights. Like, yes, I would have been an asshole buying tickets to the Roman Coliseum fights.
Oh yeah, watch Darren Elkins get eaten by a lion. Sure, sign me up.
Yeah, yeah.
But lion better eat him quick.
He better that lion better not get tired. Elkins start pushing a lion against the wall, head position in a lion.
Like what Elkins like once he ate my left arm, that's when I sort of like muscle memory kicked in. I just saw red.
Yeah, he's like, oh, dude, I'll take a lion, dude. I like doing double leg takedowns. They got 4 legs. How much easier it is for me to take them down.
I shot a quadruple leg takedown. Like.
The thing about Darren Elkins, I mean, the dude, I mean, you just beat on him and he never stops. He beats his opponents by getting them tired and then just punish them. I mean, he really is Rocky III. spoiler alert, if for Rocky 3 and I don't know.
I was literally going to say something about him being like, don't stop this no matter what. Like,
yeah. He's getting tired. When he's like, he's getting him tired. He's getting mad. Like, that's Darren Elkins. He just keeps marching forward. He doesn't have a lot of weapons. He's slow. He lacks power because he throws arm punches. He does kick hard. His durability is worrying me because, he's at the age where it could all just crumble overnight. And I think we've seen some signs of that. But then he's also had recently showed that, like, oh, dude, this guy can still compete. And what really impressed me is that he's still a solid wrestler. Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure. It's not like what it was in his peak, but at 40 years old to be able to wrestle, I think that might be even more impressive than being able to take punches, because wrestling's hard. And if we do that at 40 years old, he's relentless to get the fight to the ground. He gets the fight to the ground. He's got good top game, good ground and pound. And we know this dude will not stop fighting until he, all 15 minutes. And then he's just like, why do we even have rounds? Julian Erosa, he's big for the weight class, long and lengthy. He has that long reach. He flows really good between stances, nice volume. He's beaten so many talented, more talented fighters than him because of his output. He loves to battle, get in the pocket, and throw down and see who's tougher. He's doing. We talk about Darren Elkins. Julian Erosa is taking some ungodly amount of damage himself. He's a blood and guts guy himself. He's been hurt in so many fights. He's been knocked out a few times, but he also can crack and knock them out. He's got a big kicking game. He loves teep kicks. He will wrestle too. His defensive wrestling isn't that good. He was taken down a bunch by Hakeem Dawodu. He also make it worse by jumping guillotine. But to his credit, he's got a really good guillotine. He subbed Ricardo Ramos with it. He caught Christian Rodriguez in the last fight. So obviously he's extremely dangerous with that. Something I can see him going for against Darren Elkins as Elkins kind of puts himself in that position. He will look for subs off his back instead of scrambling to his feet, which I don't think would be a good idea against Darren Elkins. And Kaido is also his ultimate weapon. He ain't going to stop. He's going to bring it too. I'm shocked by the line. I understand why Julian Erosa is the favorite, just based on age and what they've done recently, but negative 400 is nuts to me. If Erosa comes out too aggressive, that can lead to Elkins getting to his hips and taking him down. And if he makes a mistake of, I have no issues with him jumping a guillotine. Like I'm generally on the don't jump a guillotine side, but sometimes go for it. But it's a risk. And if you end up on bottom of Darren Elkins, that's where he wants. Like, you got to make it easier for him to be on top. I want to say Elkins has one thing left back. I want to say he's got one more. It's going to come to our boy Julian Erosa. I think he's going to start wrestling. I think he's going to win the second and third round. I think he's going to be covered. I think both guys are going to be covered in blood. I think we're going to be on our feet saying, holy shit, these two guys, like, we don't deserve this. Give me Elkins by split decision.
Nothing against either of these guys. I said right off the bat, they're two of our dudes. But considering that one of them has a lot more time left to do this than the other, I kind of hope you're right. What I wouldn't give to see Darren Elkins go out on a win in front of a full arena instead of like losing his third fight in a row in the Apex. So yeah,
I can see Darren Elkins be like full of blood. His eyeball fell out, and he's still trying to like go up to Dana White, be like, "Hey, if something happens between Volkanovski and Lopez, I can jump in."
The UFC 314 prelims soldier on with a lightweight matchup between Jim Miller and Chase Hooper. Miller, the 41-year-old New Jersey native, is 38-18 with one no contest overall. He is 28-17 with one no contest since joining the UFC, and he won his last time out. He guillotined Damon Jackson in the first round at UFC 309 last November. That allowed him to bounce back from his decision loss to Bobby Green at UFC 300. So he'll look to put together 2 wins in a row once again this late in his career against Hooper. The 25-year-old Washington State native is 15-3-1 overall. He is 7-3 since joining the UFC as a veteran of Season 2 of Dana White's Contender Series, where he won but was not immediately signed. But since being signed, 7-3, including wins in his last 4 outings, comprising all of his cage appearances of the last 2 calendar years. He went 2-0 in 2023 and went 2-0 in 2024, culminating with a first-round submission of Clay Guida at UFC 310 in December. So he looks to make it 5 in a row and continue to certify himself something more than a mop top novelty in this division. Keith, you said no more than 10 minutes ago, as we count the time, that you were surprised to see Julian Erosa as a minus 400 favorite over Darren Elkins. Tell me how you would have reacted if I told you 5 years ago that Chase Hooper would be minus 800 against somebody in the UFC, let alone somebody that has more UFC wins than Chase Hooper has had birthdays. Yeah, Hooper minus 800, Miller
That's
plus
nuts.
550, and that, as you know, if you watch the show, when I call out these lines, I'm calling out kind of the median of the 3 or 4 most reputable sports books available in North America. I'm not fishing for outrageous lines. If you're not careful, you can find Hooper as a 10-1 favorite right now. Okay, on the one hand, I am extremely impressed at the improvements Chase Hooper has made since showing up on the Contender Series as an 18-year-old and then showing up in the UFC as a 19-year-old like a year and a half later. He has remade his body. He's remade his skill set. He's gone from kind of an unathletic, one-dimensional novelty in the division who was mostly notable because he had kind of a goofy personality and because he was so young to, hey, he's actually a solid middle of the road guy in one of the toughest divisions in the UFC. Like, it's remarkable that he's made these improvements. Having said that, there are fighters on the cusp of the rankings that I would look at it kind of sideways if they were minus 800 or minus 900 against Jim Miller. Having said that, though, the improvements that Hooper has made in his striking kind of, to me, they do close down the avenues of victory that Miller has. Like, it's not true anymore, like what I said about Miller, I don't know, back in 2021 on one of our early shows, where all Miller has left at this stage in his career is an opportunistic submission game and about 5 minutes of cardio. Like, ironically, I said that about him 10 fights ago, and he's proven me wrong, which is not normally something you prove wrong about yourself as you cross your 40th birthday. But aside from the fact that, you know, he is slowed, I mean, he's still a fundamentally solid striker. He's not as impressive a 40-something wrestler as Darren Elkins is at this point in his career, but like, it's not completely gone yet, and he remains a good grappler on the ground. Like, as slow and plodding and pained as he looks on the feet or while trying to shoot any kind of takedown from outside, he remains pretty fast and fluid once he's actually on the ground. Like, still, you know, works to pass guard, is still good at taking people's backs and scrambles, or, you know, like looking for the neck. But all of his routes to victory here involve Hooper either making a terrible strategic mistake in his overall game plan or making a terrible tactical mistake and just getting caught in something. Because otherwise, Hooper is literally 15 years younger. He's taller, has better range. He's developed as a striker. I mean, I wouldn't say he's a plus striker by the overall standards of the division, but he's turned into a striker who understands what kind of body type he has and what kind of striking is going to be effective for him. Like, he tries to fight and outfight. And because he's become a more confident striker, a more defensively sound striker, he doesn't look just as hapless and overwhelmed if he can't get fights to the ground. Like, that was the rough thing to watch early on. I mean, I think it would be very fair to call him a lightweight Mickey Gall for the first 5 or 6 fights of his run, where he's an impressive grappler with no reliable way to get the fight to the ground if his opponent doesn't want it there. So he's stuck either just getting busted up on the feet and looking helpless while doing so, or hoping his opponent makes a terrible tactical choice. Hooper is already out of that range. Like if you're watching us right now and you see that picture of him underneath us, that picture is him as like a puny 20-year-old. He doesn't even look like that anymore. Like, I'm not saying he's turned into Sage Northcutt or anything, but he doesn't look like that version of Chase Hooper. Like he's turned into a UFC quality lightweight, which I never would have guessed 4 or 5 years ago. And I already said I don't condone 8-1 favorite over Jim Miller. Like all Miller's got to do is have 2 close rounds, you know, and some reliably unreliable judging, and he's busted somebody's parlay. I think this one goes to decision, and I think there's only so much we can learn about Chase Hooper from how he looks against 41-year-old Jim Miller, but I think Hooper may come out, keep this thing standing, and win all 3 rounds that way. And in hindsight, we may look back at it as him having turned a corner in that, like, okay, at this point, he had completely left behind the like noodly armed grappling specialist that he was when he was 19. Because here he saw his best route to victory was to just keep a slow, grizzled veteran on the outside and bust him up with your jab and some low kicks and body kicks all night and do that. So give me Hooper to get a pretty easy looking decision here.
Dude, if 5 years ago you told me Chase Hooper was a negative 800 favorite over anybody in the UFC, I would have been like, all right, dude, I know you're trying to trick me. Like, there's another guy named Chase Hooper. Like, nice try. You know, it just keeps going. I mean, going back to just don't give up on guys when they're really young. You know, if Raul Rosas takes another early loss, don't give up on him. And start a whole bunch of other fighters that we can talk about have done this. He wasn't this young, but I always go back to like when people gave up on Robbie Lawler, and it was like,
Charles Oliveira was 19 when he debuted in the UFC. Yeah.
Max Holloway was like, oh, he was 19. A prelim guy and losing to Dennis Bermudez and stuff. So, and then he gets Jim Miller, who's like obviously the other extreme. I mean, why is Jim Miller still fighting? And I'm not hating, like, I'm not saying like he isn't good or, you know, but it's more like, does he have enough money? Like, can he just do BJJ and MMA seminars for the rest of his life or coach or like, but you know,
I think he's serious about wanting to fight at UFC 400.
He might be wanting to fight him. Not only him, will probably fight Darren Elkins at UFC 500. So Jim Miller might still be fighting after Chase Hooper retires. So
it's entirely possible.
So I'm not saying he's completely washed. I mean, him still being somewhat competitive in the UFC and winning fights in the UFC at this age is super impressive. Now he was never a great athlete, and now he's kind of on the poor side of athletes. Like it continues to decline. His hands are slow, but to his credit, he still has that dad strength. I mean, we've seen him like have this like resurgence of power where, you know, he hurt Alex Hernandez. He knocked out Jesse Ball. He knocked out Nicholas Mota. Dan Hooker.
Eric Gonzalez, yeah.
Yeah, Dan Hooker talked about how hard he hits. I mean, even getting smoked against Bobby Green, he buckled Bobby Green a bunch of times in fights where Bobby Green was winning 10-8 rounds. So Jim Miller, he's very hittable. He lacks head movement. I mean, he was massacred by Bobby Green. He was rocked a bunch by Alex Hernandez. I mean, he's taken ungodly. I mean, he's in that Darren Elkins level of damage he's taken. As far as his grappling, he's a good grappler, and a good wrestler too. Which I'm surprised he didn't wrestle Bobby Green at all in their fight. He's known for his grappling. He's got a good top game. He's got a good ground and pound. He's a huge submission threat. He's got like 18 submissions in his record.
He's up to 21 now. Yeah,
it's 21. Yeah, I got to update my notes. 21 submissions on his record. He's got one of the greatest guillotines of all time. And we got a card of a bunch of guys with guillotines. I mean, we talked about Tresean Gore. We talked about Julian Erosa. I mean, Jim Miller's right there in that conversation. I mean, he hit Donald Cerrone with one of the best I've ever seen. His cardio has been inconsistent over the years. You know, you had that like famous moment where you said, you know, he can't go past 1.5 rounds or, yeah, you know, was it 2.5 minutes? What did he? And he's shown he can go 15 minutes, but I still feel like I'm in that camp of not trusting his cardio. Like I definitely don't think it's a strength anymore. Move over to Hooper. Hooper isn't a great athlete, but being that he's only 25, he still really isn't in his prime years yet. And you're right, his body has transformed. He's a southpaw. He tries to use his length to kind of strike from range. He presses the action with his volume. I think he continues to improve his striking. I think it still has a lot of areas to grow, just his hand speed alone. I like that he throws straight shots down the pipe. He has underrated power, and he's now kind of just coming into his power years. I mean, he hurt Barshkov, which was really, he hurt him bad. He clubbed and subbed him, which is really impressive. And I think his threat of the ground opens up those opportunities. Now, he has defensive issues. He lacks head movements. He's taken a lot of damage for a guy who's only 25. He got beat up by Steven Peterson. He got beat up by Steve Garcia. He isn't a wrestler, but what I like about his wrestling is that he's relentless to get the fight to the ground. And if he gets the fight to the ground, he's a really good grappler, really creative scrambler, good at winning position. He'll land ground and pound. I like he lands strikes in the transitions. His BJJ is really good, especially from on top. Slick back takes. I mean, even early in his career, we saw when he was like taking the back of Alex Caceres, who's, pretty sneaky grappler himself. He's aggressive to get the submission. He uses those long arms and legs to lock in the submission. We saw that against Peter Barrett in his comeback win. He has a very funk style grappling. His hips are constantly moving. He can get a submission off his back. He chains submission attempts together. So if you get out one, he's locking in another one. Just when you get through to get escape, he's locking in a third one. And his cardio and toughness are just absolutely off the charts. So Miller is still tough. I think the line is like pretty extreme, just because how crafty and obviously the experience that Miller has. But this does feel like inappropriate passing the torch fight. I've taken 3 underdogs already. I'm not taking a fourth. I view this as the escalators passing each other, and I think Hooper has already passed him. Like his escalator is going up while Mills is going down. Give me Miller to beat him up on the feet. I like that you have picked that he can just keep it on the feet. I think his instinct, he will grapple a little bit. And I think he might want to test himself against Miller to see where his grappling is. I don't expect Miller to get subbed, but I do expect him to eat a lot of shots on the feet, eat some shots on the ground. Give me Hooper a pretty comfortable decision.
Second from the top of the UFC 314 undercard is a strawweight contenders matchup between former title challenger Yan Xiaonan and Virna Jandiroba. Yan, the 35-year-old from China, is 19-4 with 1 no contest overall. She's 9-3 in the UFC, and she is coming into this fight off a win. She challenged unsuccessfully for the UFC strawweight title almost exactly a year ago. It will be 364 days from UFC 314 when she challenged Weili Zhang at UFC 300, came out on the wrong end of a 5-round decision. She came back in November at UFC Fight Night Yan versus Figueiredo, that would be UFC Macau, and took a unanimous decision over Tabitha Ricci to get back in the win column. She'll look to make it 2 in a row and reaffirm her presence as a top-level title challenger or top-level title contender against Jandiroba. 36-year-old Brazilian is 21-3 overall. She is 7-3 since coming to the UFC as the former Invicta strawweight champ, and she is on a 4-fight win streak. Since losing a decision to Amanda Ribas about 3.5 years ago, she has wins over Angela Hill, Marina Rodriguez, Lupe Godinez, and Amanda Lemos. The most recent of those, the Lemos fight, was last July in the headliner of UFC on ESPN 60, where she armbarred Lemos late in the second round. But for all the moving parts in the title picture, it's entirely possible that Jandiroba would be fighting for a title sometime this year, but instead she has to win at least one more. Keith, I'll go ahead and quiz you on this one. Your favorite is minus 155, underdog plus 130. Who are they?
I'm going to say Jandiroba is the favorite.
You are correct. Jandiroba is the favorite, minus 155. Yan plus 130. Tell me how you think the fight plays out. Who gets it done?
Yeah, if it was a very close line, then I might have went with Yan, but then that was a little bigger than I thought. That's why I said, okay, if someone's a bigger favorite, I'd go with Jandiroba. It's so funny that they hate Jandiroba so bad that not only is she not fighting for the title, she's not even the headlining prelim fight against a former title challenger. As far as the matchup goes, this is of that stretch she's had, Jandiroba. John's the toughest fighter she's facing. I mean, they're setting her up to lose. Jan, I mean, she's a really good striker. Great output on the feet, fast hands, nice crisp jab, throws a lot of power shots down the pipe. She likes to stay on the outside and then burst in with a combination. We saw her, land big, hard winging punches against Jessica Andrade. Her power appears to have continued to improve over the years. She used to be this that was the knock on her, that she wasn't a hard hitter, and now she's like one of the power punches in the division. What I like about her, she has a rare ability to strike while backing up, which might come really in handy against Jandiroba, because Jandiroba is going to try to press forward and close the distance. She isn't much of a kicker, but she does love that Holly Holmes sidekick to kind of push her opponent back. Her wrestling is inconsistent. She will look for takedowns. She's not good at it, but she did out wrestle Karolina Kovacevic, which I think says more about Kovacevic than Jan. Her defense wrestling is what has really kept her from being one of the truly elite fighters in the division. I mean, the people who have had success against her, they've taken her down. Carlos Esparza, Claudia Gadelia, and Weili Zhang put on a takedown clinic against her. Even Tabitha Ritchie at a loss was able to take her down. She also struggles to get back to her feet. To her credit, she showed great submission defense against Mackenzie Dern, and she showed that she can go hard 25 minutes, so going 15 minutes with Jandiroba shouldn't be an issue. Jandiroba, I mean, she just keeps winning, which is very surprising because she is such a one-dimensional fighter. Her striking has improved, but it's still very poor. It's not a danger to anybody. She has low output, a lot of single strikes. She lacks power. When she throws power shots, she really telegraphs. Her threat of wrestling does open up opportunities for her to land punches, but she's still so bad at striking that she doesn't hurt her opponents with it. But her striking, eventually they have to raise the hands up, and that's when she's shooting under. She's a very good wrestler. I mean, she's not super decorated. I mean, she's not like Bo Nickel, but she's still very good. She's got quick entries, good timing on her entries. She gets a takedown, and she gets you down. The round is likely over. She's so good at winning rounds that way. Sometimes she'll just bull rush her opponents back to the cage, and then when she gets it down, she just suffocates them on top. Inches better, to a better position slowly by slowly, doesn't rush sub attempts. Very similar to what we just saw Pat Sabatini do. And she's a wicked slick grappler. Huge submission threat. As far as prediction goes, I'm really ready for someone in the top 5 to when Jandiroba loses, I don't think it's going to be a split decision. Could go either way. I think it's going to be oh my gosh, she just got destroyed. And I'm really ready for that to happen due to her lack of striking. Someone's able to stop her takedowns, batter because she's one dimension, batter because she's not a good athlete, not a great athlete. I should say she's a good athlete, but she's not a great athlete for the elite of the division. I just don't expect Yan to be that person. I expect Jandiroba to rush at her, take her down, keep her on her back for a majority of the fight. If this was 25 minutes, I would feel a little bit better because you have more opportunities to kind of work on the feet. But really, if we're being honest, Jandiroba really only needs 2 takedowns. She has 2 takedowns. Those are 2 rounds. That's how I see it. Give me Jandiroba winning by decision.
Yeah, Jandiroba's UFC run, it's been impressive in its way because she's doing it despite all the handicaps you mentioned and some that I'll add. She's not a great athlete. She is still one of the more one-dimensional fighters ranked this high in any division in the UFC. And on top of everything else, she's at her best as kind of like a bullying, mauling, top position mauler, despite not being terribly big for the weight class. She's not huge.
That's another good point.
I think I've mentioned this. I may have made this comparison in talking about one of her previous fights, but she's kind of like she reminds me of kind of mid-career Rafael dos Anjos, because towards the end, dos Anjos, like, his striking improved markedly, but, you know, well into his UFC run, he was a pretty effective wrestler and just very heavy top position grappler, despite not being a huge guy for the division. That's kind of what Jandiroba reminds me of.
Take shields.
Yeah, there you go. Like, that's a rough. Yeah, a less insane Jake Shields. Like, and I completely agree with you. The fight is going to come along where she's just not able to get takedowns, and it's going to be against somebody that can really punish her for trying, and it could be Jan. Like, and if it is, we might know within, you know, the first 3 to 4 minutes. I see more upset potential here than I think you do. Like, if Jan is able to, you know, back up, circle out, and just tag Jandiroba while backing up a few times as Jandiroba comes surging forward, looking to, you know, swing a couple of punches and then change levels for a takedown. If Jan appears to be all over that, it's going to be a very long night for Jandiroba. That wouldn't be a huge surprise to me. I think the line should probably be like close to a pick 'em, but I'm going with you here. You put it perfectly. It might only take 2 takedowns for her to win this. She's pretty damn airtight on top, especially faced with someone like Jan, and she stays plenty busy to where, yeah, if she gets a takedown, it's probably curtains for that round. She's going to be constantly trying to pass Jan's guard, pelting her with little short punches, just making life miserable. If Jan gives up mount, she gives up her back, Jandiroba's all over it, and maybe we have a short night instead of a long one. But yeah, I think the line should be closer. I see upset potential for Jan here, but give me Jandiroba by decision as well. The top prelim at UFC 314 is a featherweight matchup between Dan Ige and Sean Woodson. Ige, the 33-year-old Hawaiian, is 18-9 overall. He is 10-8 since joining the UFC out of Season 1 of Dana White's Contender Series. He's on a 2-fight skid, representing his last 2 appearances of last year. He faced Diego Lopez in June at UFC 303 in, again, something we will probably never see again if the UFC goes for another 30 years, as Ige showed up literally on like 4 hours notice for a 160-pound catchweight fight with a top-level featherweight contender. The fight may not have been as good as the story, but it was pretty damn good in its own right. Even if he gets a mulligan on that, he came back at UFC 308 in October, came out on the wrong end of a unanimous decision against Laurent Murphy, where despite hurting Murphy on the feet early, he wasn't able to sustain the momentum, and the decision ended up going against him. So he's lost his last 2. He's lost 3 of his last 4. With someone like Ige, there's always the onus to prove that he's more than just kind of a reliable mid-card action fighter and bonus magnet. If you ask Ige, he would love to tell you that no, he sees himself as a contender. Getting a win over Woodson would certainly go a long way towards proving that. The 32-year-old Missouriite is 13-1-1 overall. He's 7-1-1 since joining the UFC out of Season 3 of the Contender Series, and he has won his last 4 fights, and he is on a 7-fight unbeaten streak. He fought 3 times last year, taking a split decision over Charles Jourdain in January, a unanimous decision over Alex Caceres in May, and then getting a first-round buzzer-beating KO of Fernando Padilla at UFC on ESPN Covington versus Buckley. So he's looking to make it 5 wins in a row, an 8-fight unbeaten streak, something that by all rights should propel him into the title contendership conversation. And he is moderately favored to get it done. Woodson is out there minus 170, Ige plus 140. I'm a big fan of Dan Ige. There's nothing not to like about him.
How can you not be?
Yeah.
Seriously. After what he did, like...
And it's not like that was a huge shock. Like, you know, if you asked
I was
people,
pretty shocked. I was pretty.
okay,
You're like tuning into you're sitting on the couch, put on TV. You're like, and they're like, "Oh, unfortunate news! Diego Lopez fight has been canceled." And you're like, he's like, oh, "I'm a half hour from the arena."
like just literally texting Mick Maynard from
dude. Like, you see that shit? Like that's something you'd see in a movie. Like the guys rushing, they get the car moving, swerving in. I gotta get to the arena. You know?
Oh, okay. The situation is surprising, but if the situation happened, that it was Dan Ige is not surprising. You know?
Yeah.
Like of the guys in the appropriate weight range that lived in Vegas, yeah. Dan Ige is the guy that was going to be texting. And the thing is, and I probably say this every time we preview one of his fights, he really is like, he's a step away from the stereotypical early 2000s Hawaiian just scrap guy. You know, he and Brad Tavares were the people that preceded the Hawaiian exodus to Las Vegas gyms by like, you know, 5 or 6 full years. And he's always been a well-rounded guy, like not just a hard hitter, but like a pretty solid boxer who has good kicks as well. He's a solid offensive wrestler. He can take care of himself on the ground. If you were to ask me, okay, you know, Dan Ige, he's 10-8 in the UFC. What are his weaknesses? Well, his only real weakness is better fighters than himself. But stylistically, if you were going to point out one thing that's like, oh, Ige didn't perform as well as I thought he might, I would say it's against slicker boxers than himself. Like the people, like as tough as he is, and as much as like you can never really count the guy out of a fight, as underratedly well-rounded as he is, when he's been in there against like Calvin Kattar, like just made Ige look basic and remedial on the feet. Aside from getting clocked and dropped, Laurent Murphy did a lot of that to Dan Ige. Ige facing like again, I think Dan Ige's only real weakness is just people that are overall just better fighters than him. But stylistically, Woodson presents a particular problem. Like you've probably been on the Woodson train longer than I have, so I'll leave the particulars of why he's awesome to you. But I've seen him kind of get flowing in some of his fights on this 7-fight unbeaten streak, where he looks like an elongated Max Holloway for certain sequences, where he's just like they're the only 2 guys in the division that will throw like a 6-punch combo punctuated with a kick while changing stances and moving forward, and almost all of it hits his opponent, and his opponent just has no idea what to do. I think that's kind of what this fight hinges on. Like, Ige is never fully out of any fight, but as long as this thing's on the feet, I think it favors Woodson heavily. Woodson has range on everybody in this division, and he uses it very well. Like, he's great at keeping guys on the outside. Like, when he first got to the UFC, like, as interesting as he was as kind of a physical specimen and a kind of a stylistic specialist, I never would have picked that this would be a guy that would go 7 straight fights in the UFC featherweight division without a loss. Like a 6'2", a 6'2" featherweight who's all legs and is kind of heavy on his front foot and is a boxer. Like, yeah, wrestlers are going to eat him alive. There are some that have had chances. None have eaten them alive yet. I think this fight is probably Woodson piecing up Ige really badly from the outside, and Eric Nixick just screaming himself hoarse at Ige, telling him to try to take the guy down. Like, that's kind of how I see this one. Give me Woodson in a pretty dominant decision where Ige's, I mean, he's still trying to win the fight in the 3rd round, but he is just busted up beyond recognition. I think this is I think Woodson takes full advantage of the kind of marquee spotlight he has here in the top prelim of one of the better cards of the year and puts on a showcase.
I think Woodson, 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 I think Wood Yeah, dude. I mean, we could talk about Danny Gay and how awesome he is for the sport, and the guy's the freaking man, and like it's not even that he took the fight on the same day and as the event is starting. It's also who he fought.
Yeah.
Like he didn't step up and take on lower level 145 pounder. He's taking on a guy that's fighting for the
title
main event tonight could be the champion. There's a very close possibility that he's a champion at the end of the night. Like, that's who he fought. He didn't fight 145 on a 3-fight losing streak, and he's like, this would be easy money. I can make.
It isn't like half of the Elkins Erosa fight fell off and he got up off his couch.
That'd be a tough fight to take and do. But I mean, I can't think of a really bad 145 pounder, but a guy who's coming off the Contender Series and he's already 0-1, and you're you just look at this guy and be like, oh, this is easy. I might as well get paid. No, he took on absolute murderer in the main event. So, what Danny Gay does, I mean, he's a pressure fighter, really nice output, very accurate with his striking. He loves to get in the pocket, unload big shots. He has good boxing. He has a very technical. He fights behind a high guard defense. I like his counter right hand to left hook combination. I love how he battered Damian Jackson's body. He doesn't get enough credit for his power. Well, I shouldn't say that's not true. They're gonna make him sound like it's Mike Tyson because he knocked out Damian Jackson. So let me rewind that. But he does have power. When you think of biggest punchers in the division, you think of a Josh Emmett, you don't think of Danny Gay. So that's what I should have said. But I mean, even in a loss, he dropped Laroma. He clearly lost to Lopez, but he had moments in that fight where he landed some good shots. He's a solid kicker. He loves flying knees and stuff to close the distance. He's a solid wrestler. Good at wrestling when his opponents are kind of striking, when they're opening up big shots. That's when he's timing his entries. Not the best defensive wrestler, and he needs to improve his takedown defense. As far as his overall grappling, I think it's really good. I mean, he's got a good top game. I like his ground and pound. He's very busy with it. He has a cardio to go hard all 15 minutes. I am a little worried about his durability, though. I mean, he's faced all the top guys in the division and has taken so much damage. Sean Woodson, I've said this before. I'm going to keep it in my notes. I've been in the same room as Sean Woodson, and I can imagine what his weight cuts are like. I want to be I would love to be there. Actually, I don't know. Maybe there's something sick in me, but to watch him, Thursday night, Friday, trying to make the weight. I mean, it's got to be torture. It's got to be Stanford prison experiment level torture to make weight. He's stuck in a closet and they're don't come out until you're on weight or something. I mean, the dude's the biggest guy in the weight class. He's a great boxer. He flows back and forth from orthodox in southpaw. A lot of herky jerky stuff that he's doing, kind of getting his opponents guessing. I think he works best from range. He's very very poised, kind of just touches to this opening. He moves his hands. He does a lot of things. He moves his hands around, kind of getting people guessing, and then it'll just jab you as your hand comes out here, and next minute he's jabbing you with it. Very crisp boxer. I love his body work. I like when he gets inside, he starts to look for uppercuts. He seems to actually added some more punching power too recently. He kind of would just jab and move, and now he's really trying to hurt guys. He throws a lot of kicks because it's super easy for him to just get kicks up there to his opponent's chin. The way to beat him is to pressure him and force him to close the distance and get in his long range shots. But recently he's added these uppercuts and some knees inside. So he's going to make you pay now when you're coming in. That wasn't the case before. But he's still he'll still eat some shots. He has one thing I also don't like is that he has a lot of shoulder rolls and stuff to avoid shots, which is very boxing centric. Where I still, he knows that he didn't get hit clean, but doesn't always look that way. And especially in Miami with a crowd, that might be a bad idea. The one thing I really hate that he does is that he'll back himself right up to the cage, and kind of. I think it's his way of helping himself avoid takedowns. If someone shoots in on him, he can kind of lean against the fence. But it's also that Anderson Silva thing where he leans back against the fence. It's really dangerous. The problem is, it might help you avoid getting taken down, but it also limits your head movement and your foot movement because you can't really move. So The other thing I don't like about him is that he'll cruise sometimes instead of letting his hands go. He has closer fights than it needs to be. He almost never looks for offensive takedowns. His defensive takedowns is to stand next to the fence and kind of use his height. And his takedown defense has greatly improved, probably because of that. The only time we saw him in trouble on the ground is when he was subbed by Julian Erosa, but that was like forever ago. And his cardio has actually improved a lot since then. Danny Gay, I didn't mention this much. One thing about Danny Gay, he's a very smart fighter. Like, he knows his best avenue of victory. I can't imagine he stays on the outside and has a distance kickboxing match with Woodson. I expect him to close the distance. I expect him to try to wrestle a lot. I think he will have some moments. I can't get past the striking, the range of what's in his new inside striking skills he has, his size advantage. Even if you take him, get to his legs, it's hard to get like when you normally lift up someone's leg, his is still on the ground. And if you take him down, I think he's gonna be too big. He'll kind of work back to his feet. Like, Danny Gay's not that big for the featherweight, and you have Woodson obviously massive. And I think he gets back to his feet. He lands punches. He lands kicks. I think the fight's gonna be close. I think Woodson's good at, I don't know, Ige's going to have moments, but I still like Woodson. Give me Woodson by decision.
The 5-fight main card of UFC 314 begins with a light heavyweight matchup between Nikita Krylov and Dominick Reyes. Krylov, the 33-year-old Ukrainian by way of Russia, is 30-9 overall. He's 11-7 across 2 separate stints in the UFC. He was let go by the UFC back in 2016 off of a loss, despite being on a 5-fight winning streak heading into that. Went and won a couple fights in Russia, was signed back in 2018. He is 5-4 since then, and he's on a 3-fight win streak right now. That's the good news. The bad news is that the most recent of those 3 wins was over 2 years ago. He beat Alexander Gustafsson and Volkan Oezdemir in the second half of 2022. And then the last time we saw him in the octagon was in March of 2023 when he triangled Ryan Spann in the first round. So Krylov looking for another 4-fight win streak in the UFC back 2 years later, thanks to a couple of injuries, thanks, I'm sure, in part to political upheaval and unrest in his native Ukraine and his adoptive country of Russia. But he's back, and he is facing a guy that was not much of a factor in the division himself last time Krylov was around, in the form of Reyes. 35-year-old Californian is 14-4 overall. He's 8-4 in the UFC, and he is, of course, a former light heavyweight title challenger, having faced John Jones back in February of 2020 at UFC 247, and in the eyes of some observers at least, deserved to get the win. Nonetheless, that was the first of 4 straight losses for Reyes that just seemed to get increasingly lopsided, and he looked increasingly dilapidated in them, culminating in a first-round knockout at the hands of Spann back in November of 2022. He took 18 months off after that, came back last summer, and since then he has 2 stoppage wins. He came back, knocked out Dustin Jacoby in like 2 minutes. Then last December at UFC 310, he knocked out Anthony Smith with ground and pound late in the second round. So improbably, Reyes, a guy that looked to be completely cooked competitively, is maybe a ranked fighter again if he gets past Krylov. He is not favored to do so, as Nikita Krylov is minus 200, Dominick Reyes plus 170 as your underdog. Keith, 205 is the division full of fighters that it's hard to trust. Lots of them are easy to root for. Lots of them are fun to watch. Not many of them are reliable. I'm going to make you go out on a limb first and tell me which of these 2 guys gets it done and what the fight looks like.
Well, we know what the fight will look like. Now, who wins is a different story, but we know it's going to be bonkers. You know what I mean? You have say what you want about Dominick Reyes. He's never in boring fights. What is Dominick Reyes' most boring fight? John Jones? like
It might have been the Jones fight, and that one, everyone was on the edge of their chair, counting rounds. Yeah.
That's my point. Like, when it comes to actual action, it might have been Oh no,
The OSP fight wasn't great.
OSP ended fun, but it was a little slow. But yeah. But my point was, and the John Jones fight was very exciting. So
yes,
and then obviously, the knock on Krylov is he gets stoppage or gets stopped. So, so really fun fight. Dominick Reyes, he's southpaw. He's still one of the best athletes in the division. He springs at his opponents. He's a counter striker. He's shown that he still is very fast for a light heavyweight. Nice variety in striking. His straight left is his best punch. He uses movement really well in counter strikes. He has a rare ability to land while backing up. We saw that. I mean, it was a long time ago, but we saw how he backed up and knocked out Chris Weidman as Weidman was coming in on him. His step back left hand is his best punch. That's what I just mentioned. That's what flattened. That's what flattened OSP. The dude. He can hit. He can hit hard. The thing is, he's all athleticism and speed, and that can fade overnight. And that's what I'm most concerned about him. When he's lose that speed, everything. He relies on being super explosive and not having the best technique, and because of that also opens him to be countered because he can't overthrow. He will load up sometimes too. I mean, he was doing that against Ryan Spann. He's surprisingly hittable for a guy that, I talked about his being super athletic, but lately he's been more of a stationary target, which I think is really weird because I feel like the best of his ability would be able to move and cut angles and be faster, something he needs to go back to. He's taken a lot of damage, and durability issues has been an issue. I mean, obviously he took a lot of damage against Jan Blachowicz, Yuri Prohaska, Ryan Spann knocked him out with a jab. And the Ryan Spann fight, that one has not aged well. I mean, he's won since, so he's looked much better. But as far as when you look at his record, you're like, oh man, that's a bad one. He likes to kind of square up with his opponents, and because of that, he'll back up to the cage and kind of leave him no places to escape. He's a good clinch fighter. I mean, he held his own against John Jones, who's a legendary clinch striker. Again, the John Jones fight was forever ago, but obviously that's what he's most known for. He's not much of a wrestler. I mean, I think he has like 2 or 3 takedowns in his career. But if he ends up on top, he's got really hard ground and pound. He showed strong defense, takedown defense against John Jones. He loves using his height and using those Travis Brown downward elbows. We just saw his last fight against Anthony Smith. If taken down, he really springs right back to his feet. I mean, like Weidman was able to take him down. He was like right back to his feet. Ustamir was able to take him down right back to his feet. Move on to Krylov. I mean, Krylov also is a really solid athlete. Good footwork. He's an absolute finishing machine, fast hands, though he will drop his hands and kind of invite a brawl. He's got power in his hands, though. He's a big kicker. He mixes striking and kicks together well. He mixes striking and takedowns together well. He will look for takedowns. He's a poor defensive wrestler, but he is a submission threat. I mean, I think he's got 16 in his career. It was sub Glover Teixeira, that would have been, off the charts. But he will, because of his style, like he has this reckless abandon style. He'll lose position, chasing submissions. He's been hurt a lot. He was hurt against Volkan Ustamir, but in that fight, he showed an ability to recover. And people have talked about his cardio like being questionable. I think he has bad body language, but I don't know if his cardio is bad. Because he does fight at an incredible pace. I think this fight should be bonkers. Every Krylov fight is, and to the same extent, same with Reyes. I want Reyes to win. A good or the best Reyes arguably beat John Jones. I mean, it's that's how high his ceiling is. And he's not that. I know he's up there in age now, but he's not like super old for the division. How old is he?
He's 35.
35.
And you think of your last few champs, like think of what Teixeira and Blachowicz accomplished after their 35th birthdays in that division.
Yeah, exactly. That's fair. Like how old he is.
Yeah.
So he has this nice resurgence. He went from everyone believing him to, when he beat, arguably beat John Jones. He was going to be he was the uncrowned champ when he was fighting Jan Blachowicz to. That almost seemed like his first title defense, to suddenly be everyone giving up on him, and now he has this career turnaround, and people are starting to get excited. Could he make a run? I'm not sold on the career turnaround. I expect both guys to throw really hard shots. I expect both guys to have moments where they might rock each other. I just keep envisioning Krylov getting the better of those, landing a shot. His durability holds up, and Reyes don't. I just keep envisioning Krylov landing a head kick. Give me Krylov by first round head kick knockout.
I should have gone first. you basically nailed everything I was going to say down to how it ends. Like, I won't go back over all or really any of the X's and O's you laid out, because you did it perfectly. But like, big picture wise, I laughed as hard as anybody when Nikita Krylov showed up in the UFC as like a 20-year-old, like a 225-pound heavyweight, and lost to Soa Palele in one of the worst heavyweight fights in UFC history, and then got Von Flue choked by Ovince St. Preux, I think, in his first fight after dropping to light heavyweight. It was just easy to laugh at the guy. I mean, he was wearing, his nickname was the Fighting Al Capone, and his Fight Finder picture had him in like a trench coat and a fedora and UFC gloves, and he had the picture taken before he was in the UFC. I mean, he was just like literally like every 16-year-old kid, like, standing in front of a mirror and like, but from that hilarious beginning, he's turned into a guy that doesn't really lose bad fights anymore. Like, he's beaten some good fighters, and for the most part, he's only lost to the best of the best, aside from getting Paul Craig by Paul Craig. Like, that's it. 205 is a division full of, it's tough to feel like many of these fighters are reliable, but he's actually become a semi-reliable guy. But you laid it out there. Like, I believe in Reyes's resurgence to the point that I don't think he's completely washed. I now believe that there are plenty of people in the division he can beat. I just don't think he's going to get many matchups with him, because he is kind of a low-key marquee name as like a former title challenger. And I see Krylov knocking out Reyes after a fight where they both had their moments. I think back to Reyes's fight with Yuri Prochazka, where it was a wild first round. It was a wild second round, but Prochazka just was a tick quicker and just a little bit more durable, and he was the last man standing. I could see this being something like that. Give me Krylov by a second round knockout, and I was literally going to call the head kick as well. Krylov's got a nice fast one that he doesn't telegraph very much, and he has iced people with it before.
There you go. We'll do a shot if he gets a head kick knockout too.
Next up, the UFC 314 main card turns once again to the men's featherweight division as Yair Rodriguez welcomes Patricio Pitbull to the octagon. Rodriguez, the 32-year-old Mexican fighting out of Greater Chicago, is 19-5 with one no contest overall. He is 10-4 with one no contest in the UFC. He's on a 2-fight losing streak, the first losing streak of any kind of his entire career. In his defense, those losses have been against Alexander Volkanovski, who at the time was the champ and arguably the top pound-for-pound fighter in the sport, and Brian Ortega. That's the good news. The bad news is that he has been on the shelf for a little over a year since the Ortega loss. He's coming back for the first time since February of 2024. And in order to get back into the win column and reaffirm himself a factor in the featherweight title picture, he will need to get past a man that many of us have been waiting to see in the UFC, Patricio Freire, also known as Patricio Pitbull, 37-year-old Brazilian, 36-7 overall. While this will be his UFC debut, he comes as a former Bellator featherweight and lightweight champ with a record of 24-7 in that promotion, and is at absolute worst the second greatest homegrown talent Bellator ever produced, along with Michael Chandler.
I don't think that's debatable.
I like I said, at absolute worst. And
I'm gonna say he beat Chandler.
And yeah,
knocked him out.
Yeah. At any rate, He fought most recently just a little over a year ago at Bellator Champion Series Belfast, where he knocked out Jeremy Kennedy in the third round. That puts an end to a 2-fight losing streak for him, the first and thus far only losing streak of his career, consisting of an unsuccessful shot at the bantamweight title against Sergio Pettis, and then a weird, ill-advised, last-minute, basically glorified exhibition at Super Ryzen 2 back in July of 2023, where he got lamped by Chihiro Suzuki in a lightweight fight when he had really just been there to corner his brother. Anyway, maybe we'll talk more about that later. At any rate, Patricio Pitbull's in the UFC right now. He is not favored to get it done. Rodriguez is minus 200 as your favorite. Patricio Pitbull Freire plus 160 as the underdog. Keith, this fight, I mean, it's maybe lost a little bit of shine. You know, Pitbull is now 37. He'll be 38 in July. He did lose back-to-back fights, both of them outside of his best weight class, but nonetheless, I mean, those are some of our most recent memories of him. Are you still excited to have him here? How do you think this fight looks? Does he have anything to offer this division?
Yeah, I'm still excited to have Pitbull. I'd feel way more excited if it was 5 years ago, but regardless, he's still better than the worst featherweight on the roster. So to me, you made the division stronger. So, and that wasn't me trying to say he's a lower level talent. I mean, he's still really good. He has a lot of tools. So yeah, I'm regardless. There's something about when you see guys fight live, you can almost get connected to them in this weird sense. Like I feel a connection to Pitbull because remember he fought in Bellator a million times. And Bellator's like unofficial home for a really long time was Mohegan Sun.
Yeah. And
Mohegan Sun's like 45 minutes from me. Like I've covered way more Bellator. I mean, I probably covered 5 or 6 Bellators for every UFC I've covered. And sure. I've got to interview Pitbull. I've seen him around a gazillion times. So I'm a fan. Like you're around the guy and see his violence, see his skill in person, up close, right by the cage. Yeah, I mean, I am excited. You know, he deserves to kind of get to this. And you know, and I love it's on a pay-per-view. I thank God it wasn't like main eventing a fight night. Like in the Apex. You know, like I'm glad that he's getting a big one and he's getting a huge test. I mean, they're throwing right to the wolves. What do you get when you have Pitbull? I mean, he's a pressure counter striker. That his whole game comes off of hitting very hard. He has power in both of his hands. He kind of springs at his foe and has these big power hooks. He kind of reminds me of like Wanderlei Silva if he was an upgrade version. And I'm not saying like when you go over their careers, Wanderlei actually had a better career than Pitbull. You know, if you're ranking fighters of all time, but I mean like the guy who get to the MMA 10 years later and follow that, like the student has learned all the skills from the teacher. Like he's sit back, and then boom, and it's every punch is to end it, but a lot more cleaner. He's so he can put you out with any shot. He's got some hard kicks. He's an underrated wrestler, especially in the clinch. He gets a lot of trip takedowns. He's got a very good top game. Like go back to like his fights like with Daniel Weichel and Juan Archuleta, where he's taking them down and winning, controlling on the ground. He's a BJJ black belt. He loves the guillotine choke. He does struggle if you put him on his back. And of course, I'm worried about his durability. I mean, he's taken in so many wars, taken so much damage, even in wins. He's had some big shots. He's eaten some big shots. Moving to Yair Rodriguez. I talked earlier about like Dominick Reyes being the best athlete in the light heavyweight division. Yair Rodriguez might be the best athlete in the UFC, period. I talk about a guy, I've seen him in person too, and I'm blown away the way this guy moves. He's a very good striker. He's got good volume. He works in distance so well. I like his boxing. He's wicked accurate. He's got a nice jab. I love that he doubles it up. He's starting to show a lot more power in his boxing. I mean, he dropped Brian Ortega in his last fight. He's one of the greatest kickers in the UFC. His kicks are super fast, super hard. Great teep kicks, crushing body kicks, great calf kicks. One of the best high kicks you'll see in the UFC. He also does those like mean oblique kicks. He's so good at mixing in his variety of kicks to all areas of the body. Like he'll go high, then he'll go low. He's also very creative. I don't think he knows what he's doing. He'll throw some spinning attacks. He'll go airball. He'll go flying knee. He'll do a freaking crane kick, axe kick. You don't know what he's gonna do. He isn't an offensive wrestler at all, and he's a poor defensive wrestler. Though his defensive wrestling has gotten much better over the years. And he's a threat if he gets put on his back. He uses those. To avoid takedowns, he kind of like uses long leg, extends them, and then he starts like down striking with elbows. But if you take him down, he's slick there now. That used to be a weakness, but he's a submission threat. I memean, arm bars, triangle chokes. I mean, he subbed Josh Emmett with a beautiful triangle choke. So I'm really excited for this fight. I am excited for Pitbull to get that moment. I feel like like I said, the UFC is 5 years too behind on Pitbull. I don't expect him to make a run and win the title. Is it out of the realm of the possibility? No. Like, in Pitbull's prime, we talk about like how much of a likelihood would he win the title, comparing it to like a basketball shot. I wouldn't put it as a free throw, but like a mid-range jumper, Now,
I mean, if he'd been in the mix kind of at the end of the Aldo era when Conor was there and Holloway and before Poirier moved up, like it would have been incredible to see him in that mix.
Yes, absolutely. Imagine him and Aldo in their primes going against each other. How great that they built very similar fights, very similar, tight, hard kicks, hard punches. It would have been really, really fun. Could he still win the title? I think he could. But it's more like a deep 3 now. I'm not betting on it. But I don't know if this is the right matchup for him. I like Rodriguez here. Pitbull has always been a really good, clean boxer, but I think Yair hits too hard. I think he's too fast. I think he's too athletic at this point in his career. I think Pitbull's going to close the distance and try to use an underrated grappling. I think it'd be the best avenue of victory. If he does that and he wins, it wouldn't surprise me. But I think he's going to struggle to get Rodriguez down. And even if he does, I could see Rodriguez rolling through, throwing up submission attempts, finding ways to get back to his feet. And I think Yair brutalizes Pitbull on the feet. I'm pretty confident in this one too. I'm so confident. I'm locking it as my best bet of the night. Like, lock it up. Give me Rodriguez. I'm going to say he wins by decision. Bruins the debut for Pitbull.
Yeah, You've basically said it all there. As recently as like 3 years ago, he was still so good. A guy with, certain limitations. He was, like he's a short, stocky guy for the division. Like, let alone for a guy that's had a couple of very successful forays into lightweight. And he made up for it by being incredibly smart. Very explosive, obviously one of the hardest hitters this division has ever seen. But yeah, he's running into a guy that's faster, longer, probably still near his prime athletically, and kind of shoring up the weakness that at this point would represent Pitbull's best route to victory. I can see Rodriguez just lancing Pitbull with a head kick like he did to Andre Fili, like he did to BJ Penn. Pitbull, he's generally had a very, very rugged chin, and as good as his chin is, his recoverability has been even better. But, AJ McKee hurt him before tapping him out. A unheralded Chihiro Suzuki nuked him with one punch. Considering that, somebody with the power and diverse arsenal of Rodriguez, I'm not even sure Pitbull makes it to the final horn of this fight. I think this one will be a lot of fun for as long as it lasts. I'm very interested because even in a loss, even if Yair knocks him out in like 4 minutes, we could learn a lot about what Pitbull has to offer this division for however long he sticks around.
Give me Rodriguez by second round knockout. All I would love out of this fight is to see enough out of Rodriguez to let me know that maybe he does have another run towards a title shot in him, and enough out of Pitbull to let me know that, hey, maybe we get a Chandler rematch in the UFC. But I'll take Rodriguez by second round knockout. Third from the top at UFC 314 is a featherweight matchup between Bryce Mitchell and John Silva. Mitchell, the 30-year-old Arkansas native, is 17-2 overall. He's 8-2 since joining the UFC out of season 27 of The Ultimate Fighter. After winning his first, I think, 5 or 6 fights in the UFC, he has alternated losses and wins over his last 4 bouts. He's coming in off a win. He fought back in December at UFC 310, where he dominated Crone Gracie on the way to an early third-round TKO. That allowed him to bounce back from a chilling knockout at the hands of Josh Emmett at UFC 296 that left him on the shelf for an entire year, which he expressly said was to give his brain a little time to recover. It was a surprisingly mature and well-considered move from a guy that otherwise is kind of a reliable knucklehead. But the comeback fight against Gracie could not have gone much better, and he's going to try to make it 2 in a row against Silva. 28-year-old Brazilian is 15-2 overall. He's a perfect 4-0 since joining the UFC out of season 7 of Dana White's Contender Series. He fought 3 times last year and has already fought once this year. It's wild to think the guy's only been in the UFC for like 14 months. But he fought back in February at UFC Fight Night Cejudo versus Song, where he put away Melsik Baghdasaryan late in the first round. He accepted this booking on about 6 or 7 weeks turnaround. And despite that, he is a strong favorite, coming in around minus 330, Mitchell plus 260 on the comeback. Wow. Keith, I feel as though Bryce Mitchell is a divisive enough figure that there are probably some people making assertions about his fighting quality based on his personality. Yeah. But even as somebody that, I mean, I am cognizant of that and I'm trying my best to avoid doing so, I'm not sure who the real Bryce Mitchell is at this point. Like who's he lost to? He's lost to Ilia Topuria, and there's no shame in that. Like, like Topuria is maybe the best fighter in the world right now, and an absolutely terrible stylistic matchup for Mitchell. And then he met Josh Emmett.
and everybody else on earth.
And everybody else. But
yeah.
But like, especially if you're good at one thing and mid at everything else, Ilia Topuria is going to whoop your ass. And then he ran into Josh Emmett in a fight where, I say this a lot, but if they fight 10 times, I don't know if Mitchell wins 3 or 4 or 7 of them, but I think he gets flatlined in 2 minutes only once.
Yeah, the way he lost to Mitchell, Emmett, the way Mitchell lost to Emmett is the way you expect a Josh Emmett win.
Yes, and it's the way I would expect John Silva to beat Mitchell if he does, because John Silva, what we hear from the fighting nerds is that he's a very good ground fighter, but thus far in his UFC run, we've had little opportunity to find out much about it. Like, when he's been on the ground so far has typically been after already knocking his opponent halfway out. I understand why the line is as wide as it is. And the problem is there's every possibility that Silva is going to go out and do Bryce Mitchell like he might as well have been a minus 1,000 favorite. I don't think that gives enough credit to Mitchell's quality as a fighter or his development. I kind of like we said about Chase Hooper earlier in the show. Yeah, Mitchell is a specialist. He is just a kind of supernaturally good grappler. Like, forget about credentials and, what medals and trophies you won in straight up grappling competitions. Mitchell's MMA grappling, as soon as he showed up in the UFC, was just elite, absolute top shelf. And it stayed that way. But he's not some, country fried Hani Yaya. Like, he's a pretty good athlete. He's getting better and better at finding ways to bring fights to the canvas that don't require him to have an explosive shot from outside. While obviously he still has defensive lapses on the feet, look no further than the Emmett fight. You know, I feel as though his striking has been improving. He seems to have decent natural power, just probably from just how he's built. But I feel as though he's gradually getting better defensively. I just don't know if any of that stuff is coming along quick enough to get him past Silva on Saturday. Silva seems kind of purpose-built to wreck Bryce Mitchell at this point in their respective development. I guess if that makes any sense. Because at age 28 and age 30, these guys both might still be top 10 fighters for the next 5 or 8 years in this division, like for all we know. But at least at this point in their development, Mitchell's going to have to navigate a minefield to get this fight where he really wants it. And Silva he's shown no indication to me that Mitchell's going to be able to do much to him on the feet, or that Mitchell's going to be able to navigate that minefield and get him down onto the canvas. Silva's he hits too hard. His hands are too fast. He throws good volume. He throws pretty well while backing up, which he'll probably need to because Mitchell's going to need to come forward on him. Yeah. After saying all the reasons why I think it's dicey to have Silva as this big a favorite, I'm calling Silva by the first round knockout. You know, it's a bad matchup of styles for Bryce Mitchell, I think. Give me Silva by first round KO here.
Yeah, one thing I like that you said is to separate Mitchell's personality with his fighting skills. Because I think right away a lot of people will say Bryce Mitchell sucks and all this, and that's definitely not the case. Now, I think it's safe to say that like what he said is one of the the dumbest thing any MMA fighter has ever said. The whole, obviously I'm talking about the whole Hitler was a good guy, and I don't even remember the second
Hitler
part.
would be cool to go fishing with.
Yeah, like he would have been. I remember he said something like something changed Hitler and like whatever. What it does, I don't know. I don't remember what he said, but
I won't even repeat it because that goes to actual like harmful.
Yeah. So that's, I mean, I know we both can say like that's so fucking dumb, and I'm not a cancel culture person. Like I didn't think the UFC should suspend him or anything like that, but I'm more concerned about his well-being, like his brain. I really believe this dude has some brain damage because this shit, like, it's not like he has this really, really bad take about one thing. The dude, and again, I'm not excusing this. I'm not saying,
he thought the world was flat before Emmett knocked him out.
Yeah, and like he's just always saying fucked up shit, and he's on this like, I don't want to say this like he's on this God kick because I believe in God. I'm Christian, but like the way he does it, just fucking weird, and like he like worries me that he's gonna like wake up from a dream and be like, God told me to kill everybody, and then like go to school and shoot him up or something. Like, again, I'm not accusing him of that, but
no,
like the guy needs help. I really don't know if he should be fighting. No.
Well, I mean, would you be shocked if you heard like a Tony Ferguson type story where somebody had to get a restraining order because he was like hearing voices and taking a break from reality?
No, I won't expect it. I expect it, like the Hitler thing to be not the worst thing he does. And what I mean by that is like going from words to actions. That's what I mean. I'm not saying like you can get worse than supporting Hitler, but I mean like now acting on these fucking crazy shit that he says. It's really, really like concerning to me. But in the meantime, they gotta let him fight and get punched in the head more. So as far as his skills, I mean, he's a southpaw that I think he is a better striker than he gets credit with because, and again, I know this is always like such a cop out for me to say, but because he's so such a big threat in his grappling, it leaves him openings. People drop their hands, worried about the entries, and he lands some shots. He also just pressed when you just kind of come out like a berserker and press forward after somebody. You can't really train that in the gym. So that'll that lands shots. He's got good output. He throws a lot of kicks, but all of it has to do is to kind of get his opponents to back up so he can close the distance. follow the kicks right into the pocket. He's got good entries, and especially because he times when his opponents is like backpedaling. He loves like the snatch single. He gets a lot of takedowns, and he isn't the most explosive run through your hips type wrestler. He's more just create a scramble and he wins it. He's constantly keeping his hips moving, following the hips. He's a very good grappler. Like he gets when he pins you on the canvas, he's got a smother and top game, super slick back takes, great flexibility. He's a huge submission threat. I mean, dude has a twister win. Think about when he was hitting twister wins, how popular he was, and think about this was the guy that everybody was like, "Oh, get this guy his camo shorts," and how he went from fan favorite to where he is now, and not that like long of a time either. So
No, it was like 2 years, like 4 fights. Yeah.
Yeah. He went from like the lovable like Arkansas hillbilly who does most of his training in like the barn to like I don't know. I don't even know what to describe him now.
He shredded his own nutsack with a cordless drill, and it was kind of cool. Like, what more can you say?
Yeah, like Bryce Mitchell. Yeah, it's funny to think of Bryce Mitchell. It's not even my top 3 memories of him, which is kind of crazy. Yeah. If he gets on top, he's got mean ground and pound. He isn't the best defensive wrestler. He'll look for like switches when he's taken down and create a scramble. He was surprisingly easily subbed by Ilia Topuria. And I say surprisingly like that it was surprising. Not that Ilia Topuria won, but he won by submission. But obviously that's the loss that aged extremely well. I still think it'd be very hard to submit him. I am worried about his chin after that KO to Emmett. And again, I don't think this guy could afford to get punched in the head anymore. And who knows what's going to happen this week at the press conference? I mean, I think it's going to be a lot of Gene Silva like winning the moments like he did. I mean, that first press conference is one of the best ever, and he'll pretend he's like some martyr, like he's Steven in the Book of Acts getting stoned, and it's like, no, dude, like they don't hate you because you're a Christian. That's not why they hate you, like, you know.
Like 80% of the people in the crowd right now are Christian too, and most of them think you're a knucklehead, dude. Like it's not that. It's like,
yeah. Like, dude, if you show up to Noah's Ark, like we're not taking 2 of you. That's for damn sure. Gene Silva, I mean, the dude's wicked athletic, moves really well. He's a pressure fighter that wants to bully his opponent onto the back foot. Really good striker, nice output on the feet. He likes to sit on the outside, and then suddenly he bursts in the pocket and he throws hard, big shots. He's a really good pocket boxer, very fast hands, super explosive, super accurate. He loves big hooks. His left hook is great. Nice elbows inside. He also has like he has big power. I mean, I think he has like 12 KOs. Now he will load up and give openings to counter him. But I mean, he won a stand-up battle against Melsik Bagdasaryan, which is so insanely impressive. He does carry his hands low, which is dangerous. I don't think on the feet Mitchell's the one to make him pay for that mistake, but someone eventually will one day. I like his step-in knees. I like his high kick. He isn't much of an offensive wrestler, but he has great takedown defense. He also, when he's been taken out, he pops right back to his feet. He has 2 submission wins. Cardio is a big concern. He did tire in the Contender Series, but all that has to do with from like throwing everything but the kitchen sink at his opponent. And I mean, he finishes so fast that it's hard to be super confident in like in my assessment of his cardio. Like, does he have good cardio? Does he have bad cardio? It's like, I don't know. If Mitchell can close the distance and force Silva back and could make this a grappling match for 15 minutes, he could win. I mean, his grappling can really hang with pretty much anybody. That said, dude, I'm with you, man. I am all over Gene Silva here. I'm completely sold on the fight nerds. I'm completely sold on Gene Silva. I think he has all the skills. He also has this like unshakable confidence. I like those type of people. I like the people that they accomplish so many things because this great self-belief. I think Silva. I expect him to run right through Mitchell. I think he does it. I think Mitchell tries to close the distance, and instead he's eating massive shots when he's coming in. I see Silva eventually hurting Mitchell so bad that Mitchell can't take the blows anymore. I say Silva murders Bryce Mitchell in the first round. I already said that Yair Rodriguez is my bet. I'm double. Dude, take this one to the bank too. I don't know what the odds are. I mean, you said it was like -300 or something like that.
-330. Yeah.
All right. So like, you can't bet that. Like that's too much. But I don't know what him by stoppage. I don't know what him by stoppage is. But bet that.
Let me take a look because that actually is.
There's
a look at it. And we had somebody on our last preview ask us, for like a few props or like alternate.
Yeah. I'm not a big betting guy. Like, I don't know if you can do Krylov by high kick or something like that, but take Gene Silva. I want him by stoppage. I think
Silva, if you pick the fight to be under 2.5 rounds, it goes from -330 to like -170. That's
for him to win, or just in general.
Just in general for it to be over in under 2.5 rounds.
Oh, so like he can win or Mitchell can not
win or lose under 2.5 rounds, which I think is the most likely outcome. -170 is not bad.
Bet everything. Bet Silva wins. Bet Silva by stoppage. Throw Silva in every one of your parlays. Like if you like somebody else in the card, throw Silva in that parlay. Just don't follow my betting advice. I'm just having fun here. Take Silva by stoppage. Take Bryce Mitchell to double down and say Genghis Khan was a good person or something, or if you could, if you don't understand when Jesus said in Revelation, what he meant was that the stars lined up, that we would have an alternate universe, and in that alternate universe, Hitler would have been a good guy, and so would have been Genghis Khan. And what happened is when all the Jews came in, and okay, I'm going to before I get myself. Obviously, I'm pretending to be him for a second.
But he'd be like, I don't agree with everything Jeffrey Dahmer did, but I'd go to a barbecue at his house.
Yeah, I mean, we all do crazy things when we're hungry.
We do crazy things.
I mean, you've heard about being hangry,
Yeah, like he was having Five Guys for lunch long before any of us knew about the burger joint. Yeah.
Oh man. If Charles Manson just got his music deal, you ever listen to Charles Manson's music? It's not that bad. He kind of has a nice voice.
Welcome everybody to the last episode of the Show the Duffy Show. That brings us to the co-main event of UFC 314. A lightweight matchup between Michael Chandler and Paddy Pimblett. Chandler, the 38-year-old Missouri native, training out of South Florida, 23-9 overall, 2-4 since joining the UFC as a prized free agent acquisition out of Bellator Fighting Championships. He's on a 2-fight losing streak, having fallen to Dustin Poirier back in November of 2022, then taken 2 full years off and come back at UFC 309 last November and dropped a unanimous decision to Charles Oliveira in a rematch of their 2021 meeting. So Chandler, 2-4 in the UFC. In his defense, he's fought basically nothing but top shelf talent that entire time. But nonetheless, looking to prove that he has anything left to offer this division, or at best, at worst, looking to hang on to a roster spot enough to carve out a few more decent paydays. In order to do either of those two things, he will have to get past Paddy the Baddy, 30-year-old from Liverpool, 22-3 overall, 6-0 since joining the UFC as a former featherweight and lightweight champ in Cage Warriors. He fought just once last year. It was at UFC 304, where he dashed the hopes and dreams of however many fans and haters thought Bobby Green might be the one to shut him up, instead triangling King Green all the way to sleep in the first round. Quieted the crowd, quieted a few of the haters, but we imagine they'll be back out in force, hoping that Chandler's the one to snap the streak. Your favorite, Keith, is -160. Your underdog +140. Who are they?
Chandler is the favorite.
Your favorite is Paddy Pimblett, -160. Nice. Underdog, Michael Chandler, +140. stylistically, this feels like a straightforward clash. And having said that, this has been a hard fight for me to pick. The scouting report on Michael Chandler, it's been variations on a similar theme for basically 15 years now. He is a short, compact, muscular guy by the standards of the division he fights in. Even at 38, he is still a plus athlete for the division. Like, you can say about just about any former high-level wrestler in MMA that they don't use their wrestling enough. But Chandler, when he wants to, still has a fast double leg from the outside, even in his late 30s. Legendary power. I mean, I don't know if he is the prototypical wrestle boxer in MMA history, but he's in the team photo. You know, just a short, compact, explosive athlete who, once he started fighting, discovered that the same core strength that gave him a bowling ball double leg also gave him a crushing overhand. And he rode that to be, at least at one point, Bellator's top star and greatest homegrown talent. Even if he's relinquished that to Patricio Pitbull, the guy's one of the greatest lightweights of all time. And while, yes, he is slowed, and yes, his durability is not quite what it used to be. I mean, he gave us a couple of the greatest fights in MMA history, and he had to be one durable bastard in order to give us those fights, like his just legendary clashes with Eddie Alvarez. The problem for me is he's going against somebody in Pimblett that, even now, I don't think many of us think that Paddy Pimblett is a future UFC lightweight champ. I mean, he's won his first 6 fights in the UFC. He is pleasantly surprised us in some cases. Like, he made the Bobby Green fight. I mean, I think I picked Green to beat him, but even if I thought Pimblett was going to win, he made it look way easier than anybody outside of his own inner circle would have predicted, which is nice because up until then, he had been kind of making fights against inferior fighters more interesting than they needed to be. Like, he's still, but I mean, kind of like we've said about Bryce Mitchell, kind of like I've said about Chase Hooper, just on this card that we're talking about right now. He is an effective MMA grappler, like out of proportion with any outside of MMA credentials, or competitive record that he might have. He's just a guy that gets MMA grappling and, it works for him. And we've rarely, if ever, seen him overmatched on the ground. And his striking has been either a liability or a work in progress, depending on your point of view. And he compounds it by kind of testing his luck on the feet longer than he needs to. Like, he knocked out Luigi Vendramini in the first round in his UFC debut, but Vendramini also kind of rang him up a few times. Jordan Levitt might have been the worst striker in any UFC men's division at the time they fought, and Levitt tagged him a few times on the feet. Jared Gordon arguably beat him. So my thought is this. Chandler's a slight underdog, but if Chandler fights smart, he's kind of purpose-built to derail the Paddy train. Like, he's still one of the hardest hitters on a single punch-for-punch basis in the entire division. Like, if Paddy messes around, he has the ability to end Paddy with one punch that nobody that Pimblett has fought in his entire career has had. Like, that's it. Even as he's moved up to better level competition in the UFC, like, Bobby Green is easily the best fighter that Pimblett has fought. And while Green is a very good boxer and has good power, he doesn't have Michael Chandler start you power. So, I mean, I see upset value just in that. The problem is that Chandler's UFC run, he's 2-4, and part of that is due to him just, being on the wrong side of his 30s, due to him fighting really, really top guys. I mean, who's he lost to? Justin Gaethje, Dustin Poirier, and Charles Oliveira twice. That's top 3 fighters every time out. But the problem is that, and somebody in the Sherdock Slack posted this. It was like just a little like Microsoft Paint meme it was funny because it was so crudely drawn, but it was the life cycle of a Michael Chandler UFC fight. And it was like early success, terrible mistake, or commit some blatant fouls, give up his back, get finished, call out Conor McGregor and say, I'll see you at the top. Like that's the life cycle of a Michael Chandler fight.
Yeah.
If that were not the pattern, because we're talking about someone in Chandler that in all of his losses, except for the most recent Oliveira loss, he was winning at some point in the fight. Like he came agonizingly close to being UFC lightweight champ with me watching from 20 feet away. Like I was there at UFC 262 when he knocked down Charles Oliveira. And if Dan Murgliata had been just any one of about a half dozen twitchier refs, Michael Chandler is your UFC champ. And even if he lost that title to Oliveira or Islam or somebody in his next fight, you'd never take that away from him. But yeah, Chandler has just had some strategic, like tactical in the moment miscue in pretty much every one of his UFC fights so far, where he's either just made a terrible mistake and not gotten the finish when he could have, let the other fighter back into the fight, committed some horrible fouls. Like, if not for that, I'd be coming down heavy on the upset potential here, because Paddy Pimblett would absolutely go out, goof around, and get knocked out in 2 minutes. But because it's two fighters who kind of have a pattern of not always fighting to their best advantage, I'm going to go with the one that is much younger and that it hasn't cost him yet. If Pimblett beats Chandler, he'll be easily the lowest ranked, lowest kind of level fighter to have beaten Chandler on this run. But I think he gets it done. I don't know if Paddy finishes this, because unless you're facing a Poirier or an Oliveira, like Chandler's real durability issues are still on the feet. Give me Pimblett by decision, but I think after the first round, anybody waiting for Chandler to uncork that one big shot and turn the whole fight on its head are just going to be really, really disappointed. I think it might be a wild first round, and then Paddy just makes it look increasingly easy over the course of the rest of the fight.
So, not counting the main event, dude, I'm super excited for this fight. I mean, this card is freaking good, and this, I'll pull back the curtain for a second. One thing that almost every single time we do a pay-per-view, I get more excited as the card goes on, as we talk about it. Like, I'm going to be through the roof when we talk about the main event. And then right after we end, me and Ben always talk for like 30 seconds, and I'll be like, dude, I'm so jacked for this fighting card now. Yeah. Like for like 5 years I've been doing that. You talking about this fight has got me like super, super excited. What I think the most impressive thing, Paddy, that like you talked about, there'll be a lot of haters in the arena against Paddy. And again, yeah, that will. But you go from when he fought Jared Gordon to now, I think he's converted a lot of the haters. And he did it the hard way. He did it by winning and beating good guys. And yeah, the Jared Gordon fight was controversial. I don't think it was as bad a decision as people pretend it was. But it's hard to keep calling a guy a fraud when he just keeps beating everybody. So, and if he beats Michael Chandler on Saturday night, I mean, yeah, he's ranked, he's high, he's fighting number one contenders. He might be fighting main events. Like, there's no denying the guy anymore.
No, I mean, we probably see him, if he beats Chandler, we probably see him against like a Justin Gaethje type in his next fight.
Well, when you think about Makhachev and who he's fought, and he's fought everybody, and I know obviously Ilia Topuria is like the guy there sitting right there, and he's not that far down the list of getting a phone call because of his marketability, and the other guy has fought everybody. So it's kind of like he could be right place, right time. Pimblett has shown that he's a lot more skilled than the haters give him credit for. He's always been he's a better athlete than he looks. I mean, the dude looks like a beetle, and
he looks like a beetle, and he blows up to like light heavyweight in between camps. You know.
Yeah. That's a good point. He can flow back and forth. So I'm gonna pull back the curtain really good. For some reason, my notes on Paddy Pimblett are scrambled for some reason. I don't know what happened. So usually I go like breaking down their striking to their, it's like punching, kicking, clinch work, wrestling, grappling. I'm gonna go all over the place. Like I'm gonna jump back and forth. So it'd be like, well, how this fight will be. He's pretty elusive. He's got good footwork. His striking has come a long way. I still would put it, it's what's holding back from being the upper echelon of the division. But if he continues to make improvements, it's something that you can't ignore. Now he's really big for lightweight, which is ironic because he used to be a featherweight. He showed that he has power. I mean, he blasted Luigi Fioravanti. He has a lot of defense. He's very hittable. He drops his hands. He backs straight up. He keeps his chin high in the air. He wants to be one pressed in the action. He doesn't want to be pressed back. He's got a good kicking game. He throws a lot of kicks, and a lot of that has that he doesn't care about you grabbing his leg. He almost invites it. He also does it to keep his distance. He'll throw like a flying knee. He'll throw a question mark kick. He'll close the distance. He can use his size and do well in the clinch. A lot of his takedowns come from like body locks or trips. Go back to like the Kazula Vargas fight. He judo throw. I'd be really surprised if he judo throws Michael Chandler, but it could happen. I think he's not like a traditional NCAA explode through your hips kind of wrestler, but he's not a bad wrestler. Like he gets takedowns. He's a good grappler. I mean, he creates a scramble and he's usually winning it. I like his submission game. He's super flexible. He gets subs from all over the place. I mean, he subbed Jordan Levitt, which was at that time was a really good submission win over a guy who's known for his own grappling. Not the best defensive wrestler, and he makes it worse. This guy, he has no problem. He'll jump guillotine. He'll pull guard. He don't care about going to his back. But he's throwing up submissions off his back. He subs the attacks together really well. He's got. I talk about him jumping guillotine. He's got a great guillotine. So, and he's got a great triangle. So, a lot of things that people have to worry about. Now, move over to Michael Chandler. The dude's 38 years old. So, and the guy who's really relied on being explosive, that's something that could fall apart instantly. He is a well-rounded fighter. I mean, he's a classic wrestle boxer. He fights by high guard descents. He's super explosive, really quick at darting into range and landing power shots. He has tight boxing. I like that he goes to the body. That really kind of opens up his hands, and he has really nice power in both of his hands. Now he's not Francis Ngannou, but I mean, he can clip anyone. I'll say this about this. I'm going to get so much hate for saying this. I'm not saying I don't have the entire UFC lightweight division roster in front of me right now. But if you said, give me someone to beat Islam Makhachev, I'm not saying Michael Chandler's the second best lightweight in the world. Obviously not.
No.
And he wouldn't be my top choice. But he'd be someone that came up on my list probably quicker than people because of that knockout power.
Oh, quicker than all three of the people that have beaten him in the UFC. Like quicker than Gaethje, Oliveira, and Poirier. Because he has harder single shot power than any of those guys.
Yeah, the Poirier is the first guy I'm picking, obviously.
Yeah.
And there might be one or two other guys I'm not thinking of, but he's not that far down. he again, I'm if they fought right now, I would pick Makhachev to beat him. So I'm not saying,
sure.
It's like roulette when you're dropping chips on the roulette table. Like he's not the one of the numbers. He's like the a corner bet or something like that. Like it's more likely not to hit, but you have the better chance than those other squares too. So
well, sure. If he and Makhachev fight 10 times, Makhachev maybe wrecks him 9 times and he lamps Makhachev once.
Yeah, exactly. That's my point.
Whereas,
exactly.
If
that's
Makhachev
a good way.
Fights Dustin Poirier 10 times, he probably beats Dustin Poirier 10 times.
He beats him 11. He beats him 11 times. Yeah. Yeah. So you get my point.
Yeah.
And a lot of it has to do with just his. I mean, how he has those big, thick legs. He keeps his base under him to land some shots. He'll eat a lot of shots. That's because he doesn't really chamber his shots that quickly, and he gets beat up a lot. He's open to leg kicks too. I always go back to like I mean, it's forever ago, but like the Brett Primus fight where Brett Primus was kicking him in the leg, and he never really fixed that. Now you talk about his wrestling. His wrestling is good. I mean, he's fast entries, explode through your hips, freakishly strong. Like for some reason, like I just expect Chandler lifting Patty high in the air at one point, the crowd going crazy and a big slam, but like Patty almost invites it as they hit the ground. He's like he's trying to catch a guillotine on the way down, or he's trying to like armbar on the way down. And he's got good top game. He's good against some weird scrambles. He's been in like every position possible, Like I could see these guys like in just really like weird position where they're like against the cage and they're like north-south in each other and or legs tangled up and who knows, they're both bleeding. I think this fight's going to be bonkers. I think both guys can have their moments. I don't know. Sorry, guys. I'm just rambling off the top of my head. I lost my notes. So for some reason on this fight, I don't know what happened. Chandler, to me, is the more well-rounded fighter. I think he has the more power in his hands. I think points-wise on the feet, I think Patty has a better chance. Obviously, Chandler has the wrestling advantage. Patty has the overall grappling, catch a submission advantage. Chandler has the more of the experience. I think he has the. I still think I'd lean towards him to the cardio advantage. I think this fight's super fun. I think we have like fight of the night lot. I think this fight's gonna be freaking bonker. I think they're both gonna have moments. I'm gonna go the opposite. I've been on the underdog train. I'm doing it again. I think it's my fourth or fifth underdog pick of the night. I'm gonna say they both have their moments, but Chandler gets some takedowns. He lands some ground and pound on top. I think he might hurt Patty on the feet. I think Patty's gonna have some moments to make it difficult. I think it's gonna be one of those ones where, like, at the end of the fight, Chandler got the mic and he's just talking about like, oh my God, that guy's so much better than I thought he is. Give me Chandler, absolute war. Chandler by split decision.
Bonus question. Does the fact that it is a 5-round fight make you more confident in Chandler's chances or less?
That is a good question, because I can see the argument for both guys, because the argument for Patty is he's got more chances to land that submission. The argument for Chandler is obviously he has more chances to hurt him on the feet. I've seen Chandler do 5 rounds so many times, and I know Patty back in Cage Warriors and all that, but I'm going to say it's tough at 38. Does that help him? Yeah, I'm going to still say that I give that advantage more to Chandler. But I don't know. Like Chandler, I love how you said like Chandler. At one point, Chandler's gonna be winning the fight convincingly, and then somehow put himself in a position where he's about to lose. I'm gonna say Chandler holds on, but not a lot of confidence. Chandler by split decision.
With that, we arrive at the main event of UFC 314. 5 rounds for the newly vacated, undisputed UFC featherweight title, featuring former champ Alexander Volkanovski and the red-hot rising contender Diego Lopez. Volkanovski, the 36-year-old Australian, is 26-4 overall. He's 13-3 in the UFC, a run that saw him win the title, defended, I believe, 4 times in a row, and puts himself in and possibly at the head of the discussion of the greatest ever in the history of that division. That's the good news. The bad news is that at this point, Volkanovski has lost 3 of his last 4, including relinquishing the featherweight title to Ilia Topuria last February at UFC 298. Topuria put on a largely dominant performance on his way to knocking Volkanovski out in the second round. That on the heels of Volkanovski's unsuccessful second attempt at the lightweight title against Islam Makhachev, left him a man temporarily without a clear direction forward for his career. He said as much, but then the problem kind of solved itself as Topuria cast his eyes on some two-division glory for himself, vacating the title. Volkanovski slots right back in as the most obvious challenger for that belt, and he's going to have to get past Lopez if he wants it back. Lopez, 30-year-old from northeastern Brazil, 26-6 overall, 5-1 since joining the UFC as a veteran of season 5 of Dana White's Contender Series. He actually lost to Joe Anderson Brito on the Contender Series, went and won a couple of fights in Mexico and in Texas, got signed just a little under 2 years ago, came up short in a short notice debut against Movsar Evloev, which, I mean, as tough, no-win situation, short notice debuts go, it's about as bad as they get. But since then, he has been perfect with wins over Gavin Tucker, Pat Sabatini, Sadiq Youssef, Dan Ige, and Brian Ortega. The most recent of those, the Ortega fight, was at Noche UFC last September, where he took a unanimous decision over the crowd favorite, Ortega, and fought his way into this bout for the vacant title. The line is pretty close here, so I'll have you guess, Keith. The favorite is minus 145. The underdog plus 120. Who are they?
Volk's the favorite.
You are correct. Alexander Volkanovski is your mild to moderate favorite at minus 145. Diego Lopez plus 120. Keith, I feel as though we've already talked about both these guys a good bit on the way up just because we've had so many featherweight fights to preview. I think each of these guys has at least 2, maybe 3 former opponents on this card. Tell me about these guys as regards matching up with each other. Tell me who you think gets it done. And I won't put you too much on the spot because obviously this is going to be one hell of a recap. But
Sure.
Yeah, like whoever gets their hand raised at the end of the night, I'm curious as to whether you think we're in for an era or we're in for a hot minute.
Yeah, I mean, in that division, it's to have an era, which has actually happened a lot in the division, is so impressive because it's so deep. I wonder who the UFC is rooting for because Volkanovski is, he's marketable. You've had him in so many huge matches. People know who he is, but based on his age, what Lopez has done, Lopez's style, his connection to multiple areas of the world. Yeah, I really wonder who they want to win. There's times when we break down fights, I almost don't want to make a prediction because the fight is so good. I just want to I really don't root for my picks. I really like this. Like this will be the ones I'll just sit back, put my feet up, and just enjoy what's ever going on. And I almost don't want to sit there. I always have like a notebook and I'm writing notes for the recap, things I want to talk about. I almost don't want to do that. Like I almost don't want to write notes and just sit back and just like you don't write, like I feel like Siskel and Ebert watching like Godfather. Like they feel right to write notes during it, And that's how I feel with these two guys. I mean, Alec Volkanovski, he's near the end of his career. He's up there in age. He's one of these guys. He's one of my favorite tape studies ever, and he, especially during his like featherweight run, I would just keep learning things about him. And it'd be like, it's so impressive. Like, oh, I mean, he has this skill and he has that skill. He's a very good athlete. He's this like short fire hydrant type guy. Might have the best footwork in the history of the sport. And you don't think of it because you think about the guys who move so much, your Dominick Cruz's, but he has those little movements that puts him in position to win. Constantly cutting angles, keeping his opponents guessing. He changes his stance in mid-combination. He moves laterally really well. All of his offense comes off of feints, setting traps and picking up his opponent's timing. I've said before, he doesn't get enough credit for his output. I mean, he's not a sprinter, but he's not a marathon runner. He's like the guy who wins the 5K. It's a good pace. Like the guy who's winning is freaking moving. It's like some skinny college kid that can't do a push up, but he could run. He's like, if you see those 5K guys, they finish the race and they keep running like as other people come in. It's like he like runs home. Like what a jackass. Anyways, so that's the base he has. He doesn't get, you don't think of like high output Alex Volkanovski, but he puts on this controlled pace that is still hard that people deal with. And he's always changing everything, that it's really hard to catch his time and catch his rhythm, understand what he's doing. He's just a good slip and rip counter. He's really good at, like, they say being first and being third, like striking, getting back out, and then striking back again. The one thing that's been worrying about me in this run, obviously, is durability, because you heard, but he's starting to pull his head straight back, which is something he never really did. It was like the complete opposite of Volkanovski. One thing I do think he does so well is control hands. He can, like he was doing it against Max Holloway. Holloway has a reach advantage against him, so he starts grabbing his hands. So now the reach isn't so much there. He can't, he's in the range where I know I can at least grab his hands. Kind of do this like tug of war thing where then he's landing shots as a shorter guy. He's got fast hands. He's got a beautiful jab. So much variety off his striking. Does really well against opponents guessing. I've said it before. He never attacks with the same combination twice in a row. He's good at making adjustments. I mean, that's the thing. I'm gonna feel like I'm beating like a dead horse, but like he's the big adjustment guy. He's the mastermind, basketball coach or offensive coordinator who's, I got to call this play, and the next play I'm going to go the opposite way. I'm going to run. I'm going to hit the tight end now. I'm going to do a reverse. Like, that's what he's doing. He's calling so much variety and getting you guessing. He works the body well. Due to him being short, you don't really think of him as a big kicker. When you think of kickers, you think of Yair Rodriguez. Dude, he's one of the best kickers there is. Like, he's a great kicker. He uses kicks to set up his punches, like his straight right and his left hook. Like he'll kick the right side. We kind of move. I've said it before. He moves his opponents with the kicks to set up the count. Like the follow up strike. He's one of the guys who does inside kicks, but they beat up Max Holloway with calf kicks. He's never been the hardest puncher, but I mean, he hurt Islam Makhachev in their fight, so I still wouldn't say that's his strength, but it's something to watch. Very underrated wrestler. He can sneak in a takedown. Solid wrestling. He can explode through your hips to get the fight to the ground. He's also smart enough to get takedowns in very close rounds. He showed against Makhachev that he can scramble with anybody. He's almost impossible to hold down. If he's on top, he's got a good ground and pound. The issue is his durability. I mean, the dude, what do you say? He's 36, 38?
36.
36. Okay, he's 36. It could come and end fast. Now, to his credit, his losses came to Islam Makhachev and Ilia Topuria. And
maybe the top two guys in the sport right now, period.
Yeah, in my opinion, the two best pound fighters in the world. Yeah. And in fairness, two of those losses came up a weight. The first one was a split decision already.
It was unanimous, but it was a classic. It was a great
everybody
fight.
Was split on who won.
Yeah.
And that was up and weight. And the other one came, where he took the fight on short notice. And then Topuria just, he's killing everybody. Ask Max Holloway how good Topuria is. Ask anybody who's fought Topuria. Topuria has wrecked everybody, which is insane. Move on to Lopez. Dude, I'm super high on Lopez. Like, he's a massive featherweight, well-rounded, quick hands, explosive, short, tight, clean boxing. He's a great pocket boxer. He attacks with combinations. I love his left hook. He's shown in countless fights already, he has serious power. He really steps into his shots. He beats up the body well. He blasted Sedriques Yusuf with one of the meanest uppercuts we've seen inside. He hurt Ige with uppercuts inside, some hard calf kicks. He beat up Brian Ortega with calf kicks. He still has some holes defensively, specifically not moving his head enough. He isn't a great offensive wrestler, but his defensive wrestling is really good. He showed against Pat Sabatini that you can't be taken down, can't be held down, and obviously what we just saw, that's a win that has aged very well. Sabatini got in on his hips and he whizzed him right on his head. Whizzard kicked him on his head. He's a really good grappler. The fight hits the ground as a BJ black belt. He competes in high level competition. He's a serious submission threat. I think it's like 12 or 13 subs on his record. He chains sub attempts together well. He had Evloev on short notice and one of the deepest arm bars and knee bars, and a bunch of other submissions you'll ever see. He subbed Gavin Tucker super quick. His guillotine is awesome. He showed he can hang on the ground with Brian Ortega, which is wicked impressive. The issue, he does play BJ off his back a little bit. Though I don't know, Volkanovski might try to get some late takedowns, 20 seconds, 30 seconds left in a round to kind of secure. But I don't think Volk's going to want to really grapple with him. I love this fight. This fight is, if I was thinking of what's the best stylistic matchup, having guys in the division, this would be in my top 5 for sure. I like both guys so much. I mean, Volkanovski might be my favorite fighter currently in the game. And I also jumped on Lopez bandwagon pretty early. So I expect Volk to be on his bicycle. I expect him to be moving a lot. I expect him to be kicking a lot. You really don't want to eat big shots from Lopez, especially after being knocked out in back-to-back fights. That said, I don't know if I trust Volkanovski's chin anymore. I feel better after I seen Holloway just get knocked out by Taporia. I can't believe I'm doing this because how big of a fan I am of Volkanovski. I think Volk's going to have a lot of early success. I just think Lopez is going to hit too hard, and I think Lopez is going to catch him. I think Volkanovski might slow down just a little bit, and I think that's all it's going to take. I'm going to say in the 3rd round, Lopez catches him, being down 2-0, and he catches him, and he's a new champion. Give me Lopez. I think there's, I don't know, like 5th, 6th, 7th. I don't know how many upsets I picked, but I want a lot of upsets. This is my last one. Give me Lopez by 3rd round TKO.
Yeah, for the record, you have picked 5 upsets. Hailey Cowan, Tresean Gore, Darren Elkins, Michael Chandler, and Diego Lopez. And
I hope I get at least 3 of them.
And this line is close enough that it may be a pick 'em by fight night, but it is an upset that you're calling as of right now. And I see all those routes to victory for him. Lopez has some of the same qualities as the people that have beaten Volkanovski. Man, I said this ahead of Volkanovski's first fight with Makhachev, just back a little over 2 years ago. And even though he lost that fight and has now lost 3 of 4, starting with that fight, I still believe this is true. He might, in fact, I'm going to say, I still think Alexander Volkanovski is the smartest and best coached fighter in all of MMA. Like, what I said ahead of the Makhachev fight was, if you could give me any fighter and any camp in the entire sport right now and say, okay, you have 4 months to come up with a plan for your fighter to beat fighter A, give me Joe Lopez and Eugene Behrman preparing Alexander Volkanovski. Like, it's the best example of this I've seen since like Demetrius Johnson's prime. Because at that point, yeah, Volkanovski was on a run that you'd have to look at like Demetrius Johnson's run to just someone who, there's something admirable about continuing to develop and show new wrinkles when you're already the man. Like, so many fighters, even the greatest fighters in history, if they make it to the top, they stick with what got them to the dance until the wheels fall off. And some of them have great title reigns that way, like Anderson Silva, won like 16 straight fights in the UFC, being Anderson Silva. Like, we didn't really ever see like new wrinkles come out. Volkanovski had something new and custom made for every fighter on his way up, and during his title reign. You mentioned that it's easy to overlook how great his footwork is because it's not flashy footwork. It's not Dominick Cruz. It's not TJ Dillashaw. It's not even, Anderson Silva or Israel Adesanya. The story of Volkanovski's footwork is watching what a hard time people like Jose Aldo and Max Holloway and Yair Rodriguez had tracking the guy down and getting their own offense going. Like, he still has all that. Like, I can see this being a fight where afterwards we're like, oh, right, this is what it is. This is what it is to fight Alexander Volkanovski when you're not one of the 2 best fighters on the entire damn planet.
Yeah.
Like, if Volkanovski completely outclassed Lopez, I wouldn't jump ship from Lopez. I'd be like, yeah, Lopez is probably still a future champ. Just this was too much too soon.
Yeah.
And Volkanovski having the kind of 5-round experience he does, like being a guy that even fighting people like Max Holloway, who are 5-round builders, like outbuilding them, like pulling a, like it's one thing to beat Max Holloway. It's one thing to beat Max Holloway 3 times. Beating Max Holloway 3 times and being the guy that's winning going away twice, like where you're like extending the gap between you as the fight wears on, that is superhuman. I could see him doing that to Lopez. You know, like Lopez thus far has shown no real indications of potential gas tank issues, but a 5-round fight with Alexander Volkanovski is one way to find out.
Yeah. Let me say this real quick. Alex Volkanovski is not a top 3 greatest MMA fighters ever.
No.
But he's a top 3 skilled MMA fighters ever.
I like that distinction, and I agree.
Like to me, Demetrius Johnson is not the greatest MMA fighter ever, but he's the most skilled ever.
Yep.
the boy Ilya Taporia is moving up those rankings pretty quick.
He's a terrifying dude. All he needs is more reps. Man, I don't even want to like throw out a pick on this fight. Like I don't care if I'm right. I'm just want to watch this as a fan.
Neither did I. I didn't want to make one either.
Yeah. But
cut my pick out.
You know what?
We both bitch out. We don't make a pick.
It's we can't do that.
What? You just watch 3 hours. We don't give you the main event pick.
What I'll do is I'll just cut the video off right here, like something happened.
You're like the Sopranos.
Oh my goodness. This feels like a coin flip to me, even though the product in the cage may not feel like a coin flip when we get there. Like if Lopez makes Volkanovski look suddenly old and slow and shows that, oh yeah, actually those back-to-back knockouts are an indication that his chin is going, I wouldn't be shocked. If Volkanovski just has a close first round and second round and then embarrasses Lopez for rounds 3 through 5, that wouldn't shock me either. I'm going with you. We are opening and closing this show with unanimous upset picks. Not a ton of confidence in this one for me. It's one of the fights I'm looking forward to most this entire calendar year. Give me Diego Lopez to beat Alexander Volkanovski. And I'm going to say this one makes it to the final horn, but just like there's no question. Lopez hurts Volkanovski several times. And Volkanovski looks desperate in a way we haven't really seen him look by the closing rounds of this fight, as just it's not working. He's behind multiple rounds, and Lopez gets his hand raised and knew. I don't know if we're in for an era, but we are in for one hell of a main event. That is it. The UFC 314 preview show. I've been Ben. He's been Keith. If this is your first time watching or listening to one of our previews, first of all, thank you. We hope you enjoyed it. We do our best to deliver a mix of in-depth analysis and occasional humorous or historic asides that we think is pretty unique in this space. Sometimes they're more appropriate than others. This is going to be a very lightly edited show compared to some of our others. But yeah, please like, subscribe. Neither of those things cost you anything. We do this because we love it. We do it because it's our job, but it is nice to know that we're being heard out there. Let's see if we can drive the numbers a little bit. If you're watching right now, give us a like. Again, it costs you nothing. It makes our bosses happy. It allows us to keep bringing you this content free of charge. You know, I don't know if we're the best UFC preview show in the business, but I'm pretty confident that we're the best one that's not behind a paywall or constantly trying to sell you something.
That's a good point.
So yeah, and drop us a comment. Keith and I both man the comment section. We'd love to hear your take on these fights. Keith picked a bunch of upsets. I picked some. If you think we left any money on the table, let us know. If you think any of Keith's upset picks were crazy, let us know. Because if you're right and we're wrong, we're happy to admit it. We'll give you your flowers. You just need to show up on the recap and collect them. We are live on the Sherdog YouTube page right after the main event. Keith takes the captain's chair. We'll talk about all 13 of these fights in reverse order, from the headliner all the way down to that women's bantamweight opener, talking about what was good, what was bad, what was surprising, what was controversial. There's always something. talking about what's next for some of the notable winners as well as losers. That is going to be a long segment this time, since just about every fight on this card matters. And we'll be talking with you. The live chat is open that whole time, so we're taking your questions, your comments, your hot takes, and your one-liners in real time. We have a growing community of friends that hang out with us after the fights, and we would love you to be part of it. In the meanwhile, thank you once again for listening. Enjoy the rest of your week, and by all means, enjoy these fights.